Miss Terry,
I'll have BSNL.
you good?
The chair, okay?
It was like leaning forward, and I'd prefer it lean backwards rather than push me out.
I'd like to call the Saline City Council meeting to order. If you'd please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you very much. Members present this evening are Council Members Gearboss, CO, Rice, Lesh, Harmount, Mayor Pro Tem Dillon, and Mayor Marl. From City staff, we have City Manager O'Toole, Clerk Royal, Community Development Director Harrington, Police Chief Radzik, DPW Director Searles, and Parks and Rec Director Lambert, as well as our IT Administrator, Mr. Schonk. At this time, the Chair would entertain a motion to approve the agenda. I guess we'll go with as amended. There was a numerical change, not a substantive change to tonight's agenda. Clerk Royal, a revised copy of the agenda was distributed earlier this evening. Can you remind me what was the numerical error on the previous agenda?
There was two 20-40s, and it should have been 20-43.
Very good. So that's on consent, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Noting that, if there are no additional changes, is there a motion then to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Moved by CO. Was that a second by Lesh? Yep. Thank you, Chuck. All those in favor of approving the agenda as amended signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, and the motion carries unanimously. There are no absences, so we'll proceed to the first of two public comment periods. And I want to make note of something, because I was reviewing some documents and some material in my files earlier this week. I'm going to try to be a bit more emphatic on this point. This first public comment period is limited to specific agenda items. So your comments need to be exact and precise to an enumerated action item on the agenda. If you want to speak to a broader issue or issues, you are welcome to do so during the second public comment period. And of course, we always welcome members of the public, property owners, business owners to reach out to us in advance or subsequent to a meeting if you'd like to discuss an issue or concern. So now we come to the first public comment period on agenda items. Under the Open Meetings Act, any person may come forward at this time and make comment or question on an item that appears on this agenda. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person. Anyone who would like to speak is requested but not required to state his or her name and address for the record.
Mr. Mayor, I heard
You got to speak in the microphone.
I make sure what I'm talking about is written on the first page of this agenda. Can I talk about that?
If your comments are specific to that issue.
Thank you. Okay, yes, on. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council, friends. My name is Changming Fan. I have to say this is something make me so excited, which is I'm shaking. And I'm so glad, before I see personally, Ms. Jennifer Thomas will lead or make presentation today about the Environment Commission, which is I have been waiting for a long time. And also, I like to win the support about the environmental crisis solution, which is most important. I presented to you, SALT initiative and the SAS. And I believe this is the key turnkey solution. And also will have much more impact not only to this country, this state, and the whole world. Saline Area Light Tower, which is SALT. And I'm not going to talk more because my professor over there, Jennifer, is so famous in the environment, pioneer and do everything, because how do I know that? The LinkedIn. So that's one thing which is, I said I'm so excited, I'm shaking. Do I have another 20 seconds?
You have a minute and 30 seconds if you keep them to agenda items.
Anyhow, Governor Whitmore have this proposal or or plan, MHCP, Healthy Climate Plan, become laws already. But how many people really know what is MHCP? Especially in this beautiful town, there are so many volunteers on the environment. But But we should really obey the law. And we should also continue to be the pioneer. If you look at behind you, there is the seal of Saline is the tree. The biological things. To solve the problem, best way is going the way what I use the word biocapitalism. Or just want to repeat again, Saline Area Light Tower. Not only create 6 different kind of jobs, but also to make the people together. And that is something which is, I've been told, nobody wants to do this. Can I beg you, can I talk and present to all of you, at least that you have something to talk about? Thank you.
Thank you, Chang-Ming. Are there additional citizen comments on agenda items this evening? Please come forward. You're welcome.
Hi, my name is Jason Branham. I live over in York Township, but Saline address. I am opening up Drop Top Pizza in downtown Saline at 107 West Michigan in a few months. We're starting construction hopefully shortly. I'm working with Ben on that this week, actually. Today, Ben stopped by and looked at the Leather Bucket Alley. So right now, as you know, the space that we had got divided up. I don't know if you know that, but it got divided up. So we have a frontage of 107, and then 105 and 103 is for White Pine Studio. But with our operation being a pizza business, we want our carryout business to come out the back door. So we've made our design so that people are going to be coming through the alley, coming up the back, and it's a separate space, so there's a kitchen in between. So it's not publicly accessible from one space to the other. Point being is, right now, the current sign ordinances don't allow for us to put a sign back there in the manner that we want. And Ben mentioned that you're going to be opening up discussion on sign ordinances. So we just like to be considered for a projecting sign. You know, it doesn't have to be huge, but within the requirements, so that we're actually activating that alley.
Jason, I'm sorry to interrupt you. We got your point, but I really do have to limit this period to comments on specific agenda items.
Okay.
Okay?
I believe it is a discussion item.
It's a discussion item on the agenda. It's called downtown signage.
You're referring to electric signage, okay, and message boards, second story projection.
It was
Okay.
meant to be a little bit broader than that.
Okay, all right, I'll allow it. Please continue.
You know, I've been through a lot of these in Ypsilanti for the last 10 years, and I've never been greeted by a mayor this way, where they want to limit the public comment so much. And I have sat through hours and hours of waiting my turn for public comment in the beginning of a session to speak our mind, and I think you guys should be open to that.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi, Ben Goodman, west side of town. I'm here to talk about 2 items. 2437, the application for Saline Carnival. Please approve this. We need more family events like this, and Sunshine does a great job doing family events like this, so please support that. The second thing I want to talk about is 2439, the medical marijuana dispensary and retail curbside pickup. I live on the side of town where the business is here tonight, and when this whole marijuana talk started, the Planning Commission was very clear that no curbside pickup should be allowed. And I don't even know why this is discussion. We need to continue to allow no curbside. You got marginalized communities back there, Section 8 homes. You have a school back there, and you also have a dance studio where there's kids. This is not safe. It's not. It's a drug deal. Let's just base it off that. I come from the East Coast. Marijuana is a gateway drug. I've lost a lot of students to it. And now you're opening up another way for people to come pick it up. And this is not for medical, it's for recreation. We all know it. The majority of the sales come from recreation. So let's keep it. They go in the store, have to bring their ID in to prove they're of age, and let's make it safe for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any additional comments on agenda items this evening? Please.
Mr. Mayor, Council, my name is Dave Feldkamp. I'm a member of Trinity Lutheran Church, and I would like to speak about the possibility of having a digital sign. A digital sign would give us more awareness and more visibility to let people know that we are here and we want to grow. A digital sign would give us the ability to update our message more often than the weekly or bi-weekly changes that our present sign provides. We could have seasonal messages. We would be able to share events like blood drives and health screenings with the community, as well as display our schedule and special services information. We would like to mount the digital sign within our present sign frame, attempting to present a pleasing presentation and remaining considerate of our historical traditional setting. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate your comments. Are there any additional citizen comments on agenda items? Please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Council. Sean Mansour on behalf of the Rush Cannabis at 751 Michigan Avenue. This is in regarding to the curbside pickup agenda item today. I'd just like everyone to know our process and how we do a curbside pickup if allowed, so everyone has that understanding. Currently, we allow for pickup orders. People can place their orders online on our website. We get notified through the register that they have an order. We fulfill the order for them, and we notify them back that their order is ready for pickup. Currently, they have to come inside the store, they go through our lobby, check in, and they go to the cashier, receive their items, and leave. The only difference in this would be they'd come to the parking lot, they wouldn't get out of their vehicle, there would be a sign in front of them called the curbside sign with a phone number they'd contact. They'd call essentially inside the store and tell the bud tender or servicer, I'm here outside for my order, my name is Angela. All right, Angela, we'll be right out. And now the person would take their order, take it outside to their car. There would still be a process for checking in their ID. And we do have ID scanners that we currently use in-store that are mobile, so they'll be taken out to the parking lot. And those transactions will happen then and there. And the purpose of it is just for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's just a convenience to the customer. Some people just don't want to get out of their vehicle. You can imagine on a rainy day or a snowy day, they don't want to get out of their vehicle. And the other thing is for discreetness. Some people just don't want to walk in the store and let everyone who's in there know that they've walked in. Some people are in different professions and just want to keep that discreet. So really, it's just a convenience thing. And from our end, we just want to convenience the customer as much as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Appreciate your comments. Any additional citizen comments on agenda items this evening? Clerk Royal, I believe we received one written comment in which the individual wanted their remarks read at this time. Is that correct?
Correct.
Please begin.
It states, Dear Council, I'm sorry, this is regarding 24-38 agenda item. Reviewing tonight's agenda, I believe the scope of the Harris Street lining is well beyond what the actual problem area for this section of water main. The issue is the reaction of the water main to the surrounding soils it's bedded into. The problem area is with the low ground between East McKay Street and Clark Street. This main was installed in 1985. It's only 39 years old and is ductile iron, not cast iron. It's well within a usable lifespan for a water main. The issue is not the main itself. Otherwise, it would have to be lined all the way to Pleasant Ridge, being that it was installed all at the same time. Lining the north section of Harris is the correct action to take, but it should stop in front of the fire hall. A large part of the complication and thus expense is the additional lining added from the fire hall to Henry Street. A similar corrosive soil situation exists in the area of the Industrial Street water tower, and in my opinion is a more serious infrastructure condition that is very likely to disable the city's main water storage from service given the history of this section. An aerial photo at the DPW illustrates quite clearly the soil condition around this tower. Perhaps combining a repair on just the northern section of Harris along with industrial location would be the more prudent utilization of resources. Sincerely, Eric Grossman.
Thank you very much. Are there any additional citizen comments? Okay, before I move on, I just want to be clear about one thing, and I'll be respectful but emphatic. Nobody is trying to limit individuals' ability to raise concerns or offer suggestions or comments at any public meeting. The rules are what the rules are, and the rules for the first public comment period have been in effect for decades, ever since I've been a member of council, which we limit speakers to issues that are enumerated on our agenda. Again, you'll have a second opportunity at the end of this meeting and every other meeting to bring up whatever questions and concerns that you may have, and I'll state this one additional time. We welcome emails, phone calls before or subsequent to the meeting. Staff, council are always willing and eager to meet with people to resolve local issues. So I just want to be really clear that nobody is trying to deny anybody the right to exercise their First Amendment right to express thoughts at any of our public meetings. We are going to transition now to the first of two presentations, and the first is, I think, going to be conducted by Chief Radzik with the support of our IT Administrator, Mr. Schock, a presentation on the transition of dispatch to Metro Dispatch at Washtenaw County. And as soon as you're ready, Chief, and I believe the PowerPoint is on all of the appropriate screens, you may begin.
Okay. Thank you. I'm just here to update everybody on where we're at right now with the transition and where we're headed to, because we are actually down to less than a month before we make the transition to Metro Dispatch. Okay, it worked. So just a little bit of a background, because I know we have two members of council that were not here when we first started talking about going down this path to Metro Dispatch. It first came up when we were looking at ways to have some cost reduction. That's where this first began. However, after looking at this, even when I came on as the deputy chief, my main concern was really the officer safety and the community safety. And again, I will just bring up, I hope that this never happens again, but when August 3rd happened, although our dispatcher did a phenomenal job, imagine one person answering numerous 911 calls and having to worry about officer safety, coordinating all the responding units that are coming to the scene, which in that case we had 2 scenes, getting aid for the victims and getting information out in a timely manner. It was just too much, and within a couple minutes, Metro Dispatch did have to take over. So I move on then to the continuity of government. Again, when you look at what's going on in Washtenaw County, a lot of our resources, our support teams, we have a Metro SWAT team, we have a Metro Underwater Search and Recovery team, which is actually, again, a cost reduction, because we get those services. We don't necessarily, if there's, say, a barricaded gunman, we don't have to pay for those services to get the extra help that we need under those circumstances. And again, it is just very beneficial for all of us to be on the same radio frequency to talk to one another and know where everybody's responding from, and to coordinate a plan of action. And again, the growth. What's predictable is preventable, right? Saline, as we would hope, is growing. We have more businesses coming in, more visitors during the daytime. I just think, this isn't something that we can wait to do, that it is something that we should do now. And when you look at the county, again, the only other police agency that is not on Metro Dispatch outside of the universities is Chelsea PD. What we've done with staffing, so we had an internal posting for the full-time position for the community relations, which is the front desk position, and we will be also interviewing for a part-time position. We selected one full-time position, which is Lisa Bain. She was our day shift dispatcher, so she will remain as our full-time community relations person at the front desk. And, if there's any concern about the part-time dispatchers, we need part-time dispatchers. Again, we're in the process of interviewing, not to sit up there just to be a second person, but if we have a full-time position, they are going to have benefit time off. They may call in sick, they get vacation, they get personal days, things like that. So we will have to have a supplement to be at the front desk. The skills that are needed at the front desk aren't something that you can necessarily pull from anywhere. We are still going to be entering our own warrants. We'll still have to run lien work, enter personal protection orders, sex offender registry, things that are specific to that position. And again, the after hours, we decided upon based on what we looked at the busiest times that we conducted, looking at the daily logs, was between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m., which is why we decided that we will have the front desk hours at 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Now, if we decide that that's not working, we can be flexible in that as well. You probably have all noticed the dispatch call box out in the front on the right. And again, I just want to reiterate that this is kind of taking the place, or is taking the place of when anybody that would come into the front desk to make a report, whether it's found property, whether it's a lost dog, walk-in calls, crash reports, and when the interior door is closed, the community members will be directed to step outside and use that call box. It will go directly into Metro Dispatch, and they will dispatch an officer to the station. Now, again, people can call 911, say they're down at Summerfest and they find a wallet, and it's after hours. They can still call their phone, call Metro Dispatch on their cell phone, and just say, I'm en route up to the Saline Police Department. I have found a wallet, downtown, and they will dispatch an officer to the station to take that complaint. If there's any questions on why the box is outside and not inside the vestibule, and talking with other police agencies who have done this, Milan specifically, they put theirs inside the vestibule area, and it's the echo the echo, dispatch can't hear them. So we decided that instead of having to move it, we would just put it outside. But again, the inside door will be open, so if there's bad weather, they can come inside and wait, and those interior doors will be locked. I'm not going to talk about all of the security updates, obviously, in a public meeting, but I don't know if you've noticed, but the front desk window, the glass has been replaced, and it does have a locking mechanism on it, so after hours that will be locked, so it won't be able to be pulled open. Additional cameras have been installed, and there's real-time door status. So, for instance, the Sally Port, where we would bring a prisoner in to process, we can look and see if that door is open, if that door is closed right from our cell phones. Everybody now will have a remote to open up that Sally Port garage door, because they did rely on dispatch to open that for them and close it when they left. And in addition, I know there were some concerns about if there's inclement weather, because we're a cooling and warming center. If something like that happened and there was an emergency after hours, we can actually operate the doors to unlock them from our cell phones. Ways to connect. The phone calls are the best. And that's one thing that we're going to reiterate on social media is, just pick up the phone and call. They'll get in touch with Metro Dispatch. They can send a car up here. So I found out that the website chatbot was not working very well. It sounds like that's on the other end of it, where the information that was put in needs to be updated. So we will be working on that. But again, that is not, I would never direct anyone to inquire on any question on the website chatbot. The phone directory changes. So currently we have, every officer has their own extension. Now every officer will have their own phone number, and that will go directly to their email. All of those, their phone numbers will be listed on our website, in addition to their email address. Now, Chris Schonk and I did discuss, do we have a dial by name option? And I didn't really like that idea, because if you have somebody like Rakavitis that you're trying to spell the last name and you may be driving while you're doing it, I just thought it would be, with all the information that's out there already with everybody's phone numbers, that would probably work better than the dial by name option. But again, if this isn't working, we can always add the dial by name if need be. Right now, the phone tree, it will still, well, you can see there's the direct 911 calls. For emergency, the voice loop will tell them to hang up and call 911 if it's an emergency. For non-emergency inquiries, we will still have the 429-7911 that people can still call and get the phone tree. It'll tell them for police records, dial 3. That'll connect to Joelle's office. And for individual officers with their unique phone number, again, like I said, that will be listed on the website. For the Detective Bureau, it'll be dial 5. And for the Chief of Police, it'll say dial 6. The sergeants will have the dial 7, and again, all of that will go to everybody's email, so we'll get it, immediately, the voicemail messages. And then if it'll say at the very end that if you need this repeated, just dial 8. That's all I had for that. Any questions?
We'll do a round of questions. I'll give everyone 5 minutes if they would like it. This evening, I'll begin to my immediate right with Mayor Pro Tem Dillon and then work my way left, ending with Councilmember Seo. I do have one question, and I don't know if this is directed towards, should be directed to you, the city manager, or IT director. Mr. Schonk and I had a conversation some time back about how we are going to manage and allow access to this building for after-hour board and commission meetings. You may not have an answer. We may not have sorted that out yet. We've got a couple weeks to go, but I just want to make sure that's on the radar and something that staff and leadership is thinking.
Yes, we've already adopted a formal protocol document to allow for it. So committee chairs will be granted a key to get them in and out for their specific meetings. And you can see we've already got some additional keys being installed to help with that in the future.
So it would be the committee chairperson along with the staff liaison?
And the council liaison. So there'll be 3 potential people that could be responsible. And there's formal documentation that will go out to all of those individuals that explains their responsibilities when they get that key.
Okay. Would it be helpful at this juncture if my council colleagues and I started to give a heads up to our committee chairs that
Absolutely.
A protocol and policy is forthcoming and that they're going to be empowered to do a little bit extra before, likely before?
Yes, they'll be invited to get their key, to sign off on our tech form, and to acknowledge the new protocols for use of key.
Very good.
And I'll also say, in addition, if there's any council meetings where there might be a topic that's a bit contentious and council may not feel safe with somebody not being right there at the front desk, again, that's where our part-time people can supplement, or, depending on we could switch hours as well. So that's been thought about. I also want to add, that when we do make the transition, it's scheduled for April 2nd. In talking with everybody involved, we plan on making the official transition at around 10 a.m. We decided 10 a.m. instead of early in the morning, just so everybody is available and around if there are any tech problems or whatnot, so.
And April 2nd, just for confirmation, that's a Tuesday, I believe.
Yes,
Second day of April, of course, but it's a Tuesday.
correct.
Councilmember Dillon, if you have questions for Chief Radzik, IT Manager Schonk, or the City Manager.
Thank you. So starting with the hours, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday, are you going to close for lunch, or who's covering for lunch?
We will not close for lunch, no.
Okay, so there's coverage then?
Yes.
At that point? Okay. I appreciate that. I guess I was hoping there would be at least one day that had some flexibility where you would be open, maybe it's a 12 to 7 kind of a thing, to sort of catch those people that aren't going to be available, that work a 9 to 5 job.
Correct, and we did discuss that, and again, this is kind of a work in progress, so one of the options was to have perhaps somebody here on one Saturday a month. But again, what I see from the logs and the walk-ins, it hasn't really been needed on the weekends, but if it is for those people who can't get here, during 8 a.m. and 4 p.m., that is definitely something that we can look at, like one Saturday a month if need be.
So we will no longer, or will we be offering blow tests, things like that here?
Technically, they really should be going to community corrections to do that. It's usually court-ordered, but we still can do that. Again, if somebody, we've had it before where their device that they have in their car doesn't work, so in an emergency, they've needed to come up here and have us provide a PBT to the individual. If that's the case and nobody is here, they can push the button and Metro Dispatch will dispatch a car here to do that.
Okay. Now, talking about the outside box, at one point I thought we talked about having sort of a depository type box outside where you found a wallet, you could just put it in there. Did that not? Is that sort of
I
on the
really
cutting room
don't-
floor?
I don't like that idea myself. I mean, if somebody turned in a wallet that had, money in it, and they claim they had money in it, whether they did or didn't, and then by the time we take it out of the box, there's, it should be handed off to an officer, documented and logged into property.
Okay. So I guess, just if you could help me kind of walk through what a day is like. So when we talk about lost dogs, are we sort of out of the lost dog business then?
No.
So I find a dog and I walk up and I push the button. Are we going to pull an officer off of the street to come in here and then take a dog and then put it where? Into the outdoor kennel?
Well, the dog would have to be transferred to the Humane Society. So the county does have an ACO, which should be the people picking up the canines. Now, if they don't have one available, yes, we would have to transport. But I can tell you, in the 3.5 years that I've been here, every time somebody has turned in a dog and it gets posted on Facebook, literally, I don't think it's been more than an hour, and somebody is here to pick the dog up. So,
Okay. I guess I'm just trying to figure out, so are we taking dogs during that 8 to 4 window? Is there
whenever a
somebody-
dog's found, I mean, if a dog is found at 3 in the morning and somebody picks it up and
Right.
puts
So
it in the-
who then is in this building after 4 PM?
well, I would probably be here and,
But
other
overnight,
staff,
so,
maybe
right.
sergeants. And, I mean, I would hope that my officers aren't sitting in the station. I would prefer they be outside.
Right.
Doing patrol. But if there was an emergency or if a dog had to be put in the kennel, there will be an updated policy and there will be checks on the dog until we could get adequate staffing to get the dog over to the Humane Society.
Okay. And then the call box, I just want to make sure, are we putting signage there? Is this an ADA type situation where, I mean, I just want to make sure that if somebody's coming up, they know how to utilize this box.
We will put directions and blast it on social media, and yes, we do plan on putting signage inside the building about the call box
Okay.
on the outside, because they're going to have to come in and realize that the door is locked. So it makes more sense to put the signage on the inside than on the outside.
Okay. So then, when we talk about this, the slide that says ways to connect, so we sort of have said the chat bot is kind of a future use right now. Social media, I just want to make sure that what we're saying with that, because we always tell people, don't put it out on social media. Nobody's going to, the city doesn't necessarily see it there. So I just want to make sure that we're being consistent in our messaging of what we want to connect with, like that this is not, our social media sites are not 24-hour monitored.
I just meant when this rollout, as we get closer, we will start putting things out on social media to refer to our website, because our website will have all the information as far as the officers' phone numbers, which, like I said, each one has their own phone number, and we're going to list their email addresses as well.
Okay, and then one class, because I know I'm over time, is that when you listed out the phone numbers, there doesn't appear to be one for the deputy chief.
The deputy chief has his own number. That was not listed on this PowerPoint. I
As you
think,
go 5, 6, 7, 8, so is
Right.
he going to be somewhere in between there?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But again, we all have our own numbers right now. It just is not on our website. So, I mean, this is just for the phone tree, not specific to if you look on our website and you want to get a hold of, say, Officer Shanai, it will have her email address and a 734-944, and then another 4 digits specific to her.
Okay,
This is more related to the phone tree.
right, thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll transition. There might be opportunities for some additional questions. Mr. Gearbow, you have 5 minutes if you'd like it.
Thank you. Just a couple questions about preparing for this and understanding what's been done. Have you run through a number of table exercises for different scenarios and variations to figure out how we're going to handle those?
For probably the past 6, 7 months, yes, yes.
Thanks, I just want to clarify
Yes.
that. How many administrative staff will we now have in the police department? We already have, one of our things was we were thinking we were eliminating dispatch, and now we're going to keep this position. But then we also have an administrative manager and, or what's the title? Not
Administrative
manager.
assistant,
Assistant.
Joelle Koss, yes.
And there was no ability to cross-train that situation, or is it specialized?
I mean, we very well could. My concern with her is with these body-worn cameras and FOIAs, she's pretty overwhelmed right now with, because then who's going to do her job is my concern. With,
Nope,
yes.
fine. Because part of this thing was the idea that we were going to save on staff and everything. Just want to understand
Right.
the rationalization so that the public realizes what we're doing.
Yep.
It may be helpful for me, and you may have done this. When the call box is activated, does it automatically activate when it's opened? Somebody comes up to it that's injured or anything? How
You
does it-
open it and push a button, just one button, and then it goes directly to Metro Dispatch.
All right, so they're the ones you're going to be interacting with in that aspect. Okay.
Correct.
So what happens in the scenario of thinking of all different types of disabilities, is someone deaf that activates it? How does that work? And they're mute.
Good question. I mean, that, I guess, I don't have an answer for that right now.
Just
So-
wondering how,
right.
with ADA capability, making sure
Right.
that, just a
And again,
aspect.
I don't know if any of the other ones, because of course I reached out to every other PD who has these call boxes. I don't know of any other one that does that, so it is a good point
But
to
it-
look at.
For me, it would be understanding, if it's activated, does it automatically, and if they don't hear anyone, do they automatically send an officer out to the?
Yes, yes,
Thank you.
yes,
That's what
Yep.
I thought was a solution.
yes. yep,
Default.
Yep. It'd be just like a 911 hang-up.
Exactly. That's helpful.
Yep.
What other kinds of services will we be eliminating that people have relied upon? You know, like when you have families exchanging children and such like that, will we still be providing that, or is it only during the 8 to 4 hours?
I mean, they can come anytime. There's cameras out there. Many times it does happen when we have to actually look back at the cameras to see if there's any kind of discrepancy on what happened, as opposed to even having somebody sitting at that front desk.
So we don't necessarily have situations where people come into it to exchange their children?
It's usually in the parking lot, yep.
Okay, that's fine. And then the only other question, when you mentioned cameras, the vestibule, is that going to be the camera that's going to be used for looking at somebody that's at the actual call box? I don't see it in the outside entryway. There doesn't appear to be a camera, except when it's on top of the building. So do you actually, is any going to be able to see who's actually at the call box?
I don't really think that was so much of a concern at,
As long as they can go
Real time-
into the sign?
right, yes.
Just because of times we have signs and stuff on windows that we should probably be removing it so that there's no blockage.
Right.
Okay. And then I guess the only other thing, you had mentioned, what was it here? Oh, the workload. So do you anticipate that this person's going to be busy all day long, or will they be able to assist with other types of operational aspects?
I'll keep them busy. And yes, they can, part of this was also sharing some of Joelle's responsibilities as far as some of the FOIA stuff. And one of the bonuses is Lisa Bain has been trained in FOIA, so she could also assist with that.
Okay, thank you. That's it for me right now.
Thank you, Mr. Gearba. Councilmember Rice, you have 5 minutes if you'd like it.
I think my council colleagues have covered pretty much everything. I just wanted to commend the police chief and the city manager on really working through this in detail. I know that this has been something that has been a contentious topic, and it's been on all of our minds and hearts. And I feel very comfortable with what you've laid out here so far. I know there are background policy things happening and taking place that I feel very confident in. But yeah, I appreciate the willingness to try some things, and if they're not working for the community, to adjust them. I think that that's one of the most important things that you've said here tonight, is that it's not a we'll see how it goes kind of a thing, but we'll adjust as the community adjusts.
Absolutely.
So I really appreciate that from you. That's all I have.
Very good. Easy enough. Councilmember Harmount, you have 5 minutes if you'd like
Yeah,
it.
yes, thank you. Thank you, Chief Resnick, for answering my questions earlier, and I just wanted to say them for the record. A couple questions that I did have that Chief was able to answer was when we talked about the call box and how that was going to get managed, which has been discussed. And one of the other questions that I had was about public safety when it pertains to city council meetings, now that we don't have dispatch, and how that will impact things, and that there was discussion about the budget that we were able to save. And I appreciate that the decision for the locating to a central dispatch was based on safety, not necessarily budget, but I do believe that we did save some budget on there. So I guess my question to you, maybe for the public record, is like we talked about how that will be managed moving forward.
Correct. So to answer the first question about, I mentioned if there is a concern with a council meeting that it might be contentious, we can always have staffing at that front desk, not a police officer, but either our Lisa Bain or the part-time staff.
Would there be budget, or would there be consideration for just a standard posting for the city council meetings? Again, we don't know necessarily what's going to be contentious or what's not going to be contentious beforehand. And again, in the past when we've had the traditional dispatch, we've always had people in the building to be able to support public safety. So again, for our safety and for the people that are coming in here, I know that we're not allowed, there's no arms that are allowed into the building, but my question is, how are we enforcing that? And just want to make sure that that's not a gap.
Yeah, and actually, I was just talking with the city manager today about some security measures as well. I'm not sure what.
Yeah, I'd be happy to provide a further update on specific security measures, but obviously for safety reasons, we don't discuss those publicly.
And then the other question, Janet asked about the lunch, and that was a question I had, so thanks for answering that. The other question I had was the time variance between the call box versus what was previous dispatch. What did you guys find out? Was there a significant variance with that about as far as between calling on the traditional dispatch and having somebody at City Hall versus the button getting pushed and having a dispatch? Was there any variance?
No, I mean, that will go right into, it's just like a 911 call. So as soon as they hit that button, you'll hear on the other end, Washtenaw Metro Dispatch, is this an emergency? And if it is, then they're gonna say yes. And if not, if they're busy in dispatch, they'll triage it. So they'll just ask, okay, can you hold? And then get back to them. But there's never that long of a wait for that.
Thank you for answering that. I don't have any further questions.
Very good. Thank you so much. Councilmember Lesh, you have 5 minutes if you'd like them.
I just wanted to compliment you on, it's a difficult time for the community and for you and for everybody in the department. And, I realize this is a work in progress, and I appreciate that you are thoughtfully going through and willing to change as needed. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a good plan.
Okay, thank you.
Easy enough. Thank you, Councilmember Lesh. Councilmember Seo, any questions or comments?
Yes, only one question and then a comment. Are we still going to maintain the dispatch equipment here?
We will for a little while, and then I think probably Chris could answer that. And then it will transition out. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Right.
But we want to keep it obviously for a little while, just in case there's any issues, which I don't foresee, but yeah.
Okay, and then the comment is just, again, to echo my other colleagues, thank you for your hard work with this and being willing to try to keep an open mind about how this is going to work without having any previous experience with this.
Right, yeah.
So thank you.
Yes, thank you.
One last opportunity for questions if there are any. Mayor Pro Tem Dillon.
Thank you. Thank you to Mr. CEO for asking about the equipment. That was actually one of my questions that I didn't get to ask earlier. I know that equipment was purchased not that long ago, and I know we spent a tremendous amount of money redoing that room. Are we selling that equipment? Is it transitioning to some other place? Is it going into storage?
Mr. Strong, do you want to approach the podium and address that?
Right, so some of the equipment is county-owned, so we'll be returning all that. So there's a lot more of in the basement that's hidden from view. What we have up there currently will be used for the new position. We're going to repurpose a lot of it. Cameras will be up on the main screen. So there's nothing that's not going to be used in this new role, per se. We're just going to use it for different purposes.
Okay, fantastic, thank you, I appreciate that. And then, Chief, the other question was that when we were talking this through over this time period, one of the things we had talked about was the fire department and whether or not that could be an access point because it is theoretically a 24-hour maintained facility. Has there been any kind of collaboration between police and the fire department that there could be some crossover if somebody needed something immediately or something like that?
There has been some discussion. They are 24/7, but I would hate to just rely on them to be that, to put out there that, go to the fire department if you can't, if it's an emergency, because if they're out on something, if there's a fire, they're assisting Pittsfield or they're out in Lodi, I wouldn't want to put that message out there and then have somebody not be there when it was needed, so.
Right. So then my last question is sort of a scenario type question of you have an individual that is fleeing a situation, maybe a domestic violence or something, comes here, they're pressing the button, they're not going to want to just stand outside.
Mm-hmm.
Can our officers open those doors remotely so
Yes.
that they can be into the vestibule so there is a barrier between them and the person they are escaping?
Yes.
So, okay, so
Yes.
we've got that in place. I appreciate that because I know that was a big concern of just leaving people sitting on the curb
Right.
waiting for, someone to show up.
Yes.
So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any additional questions? Chief, anything else you'd like to add for the record this evening?
No, sir.
City Manager O'Toole?
Nope.
Easy enough. We appreciate your time, appreciate your work on this. Thanks to IT Manager, Mr. Schonk, as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to transition to our second presentation, which is the 2023 annual report from the Saline Environmental Commission, and I would invite Jennifer Thomas forward to present.
Okay.
Ms. Thomas, as soon as the PowerPoint is on the screen, you may begin.
Okay.
Appreciate your patience this evening.
There we go. Okay. Hello, Jennifer Thomas, Chair of the Environmental Commission. This year, we pretty much focused on more community outreach and getting our faces out there. So you'll see in the coming slides all the things that we did this year. So the lineup this year, coming into the 24 was myself, the chairperson last year. My vice chair was Jen Harmount. City Council Liaison Jim Delorco. Recording Secretary Chris Schonk, and we had members Bruce Westleg, Claire Warden, Al Hodge, and Carrie Papa. We did lose a few people from this year, but we did gain 2 really great members, so we definitely do have a vacancy still, so if anybody out there knows of anyone that would be a great member of the commission, we're still looking. But this year, again, I'm the chairperson. One of our new members, Marcia Castellani, is my vice chair. Our new city council liaison, Jack Seo. City waste management liaison, Larry Sills, is a really great asset to our team as well. Recording secretary, Chris Schonk, keeps us all in line. Member at large, so we retained Ms. Harmount. Luckily, at least for the short term, since we're a little down on membership. But we had returning Bruce Westleg and Carrie Papa, and then another new member, Allison Kostick. So she is an expert in native plants and landscaping, so that's a nice addition. And Marcia is a retired person from one of the big 3 who did their sustainability and environmental program for many years. So also a great new addition. So all of our activities this year, here's just more for public knowledge. We do some outreach and the tabling events. Our tonnage totals, we will have to update in a revision that I will post and distribute. I was not able to get those numbers updated from 2022. This year, we did a additional recycling in City Hall lobby for Christmas light collection. It was a really good turnout, and we're happy to do that and add that to our annual recycling events now. The rest of this is more just public information. So we did another successful event recycling program this year. We did 2 events, Summerfest and Oktoberfest. We had 100% vendor compliance this year and had some really great feedback from everybody. We diverted 346 pounds in Summerfest of recycled material from the landfill, and 553 pounds of recycled material diverted for Oktoberfest. So here's the numbers from 2022 to 23. The overall numbers were up from 2022, so that's a good sign that our recycling efforts and education is working. The Oktoberfest cardboard number was the only one down from the previous year, and it was a little bit skewed because there was a big waste management recycling bin for cardboard that everyone was kind of putting their stuff into instead of our vendor recycling. So we're not too upset about that number because that was a factor. We did a new event this year, the Summerfest tabling event. We did a lot of fun activities for the kids and just got our faces out there for educational purposes. We passed out a lot of, just educational materials, got the kids involved, and just had a lot of really good feedback. We did a lot of Earth Day efforts this year. We did 2 farmers market events promoting Earth Day and our Saline Be Green merch and educational materials. We did a bunch of Facebook posting and challenges, and we did a joint Park Day cleanup effort with the Parks Commission, which was really successful. And we had some high school students join us with that, which is always nice. There's a couple of pictures of that day, and a couple of our farmers market tabling events, our smiling faces for everybody. These were some of our Earth Day information and challenges that we posted online, just as examples. And then, of course, we did the annual Electric Earth Day at Junga's Hardware. We did a tabling event this year, which we haven't done as much in the past. So we were handing out things and just, again, showing our faces to the community and letting us know that we exist. So our vehicle charging station update, unfortunately, we were a little sidetracked through 2023, despite our best efforts. Difficulties with finding the right grant packages that fit the size and scale of Saline was the largest impedance. But we are on track this year with some promising new opportunities, so we plan to see that through for 2024. EC attended, Environmental Commission attended several market days in 2023. We had the educational materials, including water conservation, rain gardens, waste acceptance criteria for Saline, watershed care, lawn fertilizer application, and a lot more topics. We did educational games for the kids, offered reusable bags, 4-minute shower timers, and Saline Be Green t-shirts. Just some more examples of our Facebook presence. We currently have 754 followers, so you could say we're kind of a big deal. That's up from 714 last year. We're going to be working on getting that going a little bit more. And of course, our website. We're updating and transitioning to the city site this year. So here's more examples of our Facebook posts. We want to, again, increase our social media outreach and education. We like to focus on what's important to Saline, things like, the water, what can be recycled, what's good for the plant, et cetera. And our 2024 goals we've identified this year, we want to solidify funding and plans for the EV charging stations. We want to review the city codes for any recommended updates. Continued focus on reducing waste at city-sponsored events and hopefully get Celtic and Jazz Fest on board. Support and promote the county household hazardous waste event this year. Coordinate an e-waste event for Saline. Update website and start offering weekly challenges promoted through social media. Continue increasing Earth Day efforts throughout the city, business challenges, et cetera, and offer another Christmas light recycling event. Our proposed budget, just based on what was done last year, and we may have, an event or two that we will ask for as we go. Any questions for me?
Thank you for that. That was very, very thorough. Well done. I don't have any questions. I do want to make one comment. I appreciate your remarks on finalizing a plan and funding for additional electric vehicle charging stations. I think that's one area where we've fallen a bit behind, and I'd like some finality on that issue during the 2024 calendar year. So I look forward to the recommendation, a forthcoming recommendation from you and your colleagues on the Environmental Commission. Thank you for that. Let me defer first to, Councilmember Seo, who is the existing liaison to the Environmental Commission. Mr. Seo, I recognize you've only been on the board or commission for 2 months now, but if there are any comments that you'd like to add at this time, the chair would welcome that.
No, I don't believe so. I think it was all pretty well covered in the presentation. Thank you very much.
Okay, and then, of course, we do have another member of council who serves as a member of the Environmental Commission. Councilmember Harmount, anything you'd like to add at this time?
I do. I wouldn't say this is a fantastic presentation. Good job. Lots of great summaries here with the goals. A couple things I did want to ask. The green fair, do you foresee Saline having a green fair in the future? Is that something that Environmental Commission would look to have added to the event?
It's definitely on the wish list. We want to do it around Earth Day, so this year got a little away from us, and being that it's in April, we need to start planning that probably in fall of this year. So that is definitely a goal, yes. I would like to see that.
I love the social media numbers. When I joined in 2020 to the Environmental Commission, we were at 224, and so we've tripled our Facebook or social media presence, so that's encouraging. So I'm definitely getting a little bit more awareness, I guess, in the city for the Environmental Commission. And I know you didn't mention it, but we did get a new logo for the Saline Be Green.
Oh, yes, right.
Debuted recently.
Yes.
You mentioned about we've made a lot of strides with the events for the Summerfest and Oktoberfest. And then, Celtic moving outside the city, we've lost a little bit of control over that. However, the Jazz Festival is something that's supported by the city and the Arts and Culture Commission. I know my colleague, Mr. Lash, is on that planning commission as well. I would definitely, we had maybe some challenges in the past with getting everybody in compliance with the new sustainability guidelines. So I would like to request some support from my colleagues as well as the public to get support for those vendors to be in compliance with the environmental sustainability guidelines. And it looks like we're going to make strides to getting securing more business grants to do more sustainable activities. And I like the goal for addressing restrictions and codes and looking at the codes that we have, including maybe some HOA bylaws. So thank you for all your hard work on the Environmental Commission.
You're welcome.
Thank you for those comments. Let's do a round of questions. I'll give everyone 5 minutes if they'd like it. Mayor Pro Tem Dillon, you have 5 minutes if you'd like to ask a question of the representative from the Saline Environmental Commission.
Thank you. So I know that we've stopped collecting items here, and I know batteries are a big thing that people always are bringing and asking about. Can you make just a public statement about batteries and them going into garbage or versus recycling? Is there anything that you can say about that at this point? Because that is an ongoing issue for the city.
It is an ongoing issue. My understanding is we stopped offering that, but we have a lot of links on our website as well as in our social media blasts where you can take things to the county. So I would just encourage everybody to look at Washtenaw County's recycling offerings, and there's several places that you can go to do that.
Okay. And, well, we talked about that, so the Christmas lights, I think that's a wonderful idea. I mean, I've been to the MRF, I've seen what happens when Christmas lights get caught up in the machines, and how it literally shuts those machines down when they tangle. How are we recycling those?
So we found a vendor that's about an hour away, and so we are just personally taking them to there.
Okay.
So we're collecting them here, and then I myself am driving them to the recycling center.
Do they have like a scrap value, or is it just a strict recycling?
I'm not sure what their final life is with them. I'll have to get back to you on that. But yeah, they specifically offer recycling for those to keep them out of the MRFs.
Fantastic. Just a couple other really quick questions. So one of the big things that I would like to see come from environmental is more education to our residents on curbside recycling. I will absolutely include myself that I am a wishful recycler. I probably put way more in my recycling bin that should actually go in there. But I think that we really have to show people in real time, like this milk jug does, but this orange juice container does not, so that people understand. We pay by the ton, obviously, for recycling, and there's so much stuff that goes in there that ends up still into landfills that we're paying a premium for. And so I think the only way to make recycling sustainable for the city as a cost is to make sure that people are properly recycling. That's
Okay.
just, me and my soapbox on that. I do have one last, two quick questions. At one point, there was a grant program that the city, there were some funds that the city had given to the Environmental Commission to give to businesses to help them. Do you know whatever happened to that? Did anyone take us up on those grant dollars, and what was the outcome?
Well, that was before my time, but maybe.
I can answer that.
Go
Okay.
ahead, Councilmember.
So we had that opportunity, and we were not able to use those funds because we did not able to recognize the business to meet those grants. We didn't have any requests for the grants or grant submissions. That's a good question. I'd like to also think about how we could re-envision that moving forward.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the one last thing is we currently have, when you talk about EV chargers, we do have the one unit downtown that is very well used, probably a little overused by some people. And we're not charging for that. We are like the only community that does not charge for EV. So, I mean, I don't know whether if it's something we want to look at retrofitting that one, or if that whole technology is going to be replaced and whatever comes in. But I want to just sort of set the tone that I would want our charging to be a pay-for-service. I think at this point, I just don't think that the city's able to withstand the cost of it. So, and with that, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you for your comments and questions. Councilmember Gearville, you have 5 minutes if you'd like it.
Thank you, just a couple. I'm glad to see Larry Searles is working with Chris, also as a staff representative on your team. Have you, looking for this next year, the fact that we're probably departing from waste management and going with whatever the cooperative agreement is with the county,
Yes.
however that's going to be assessed, I would like to see that be one of your challenges this year, to determine, to make sure what they're proposing meets your needs and understanding, and how that could come back to us as council so we can promote that.
Okay.
And then the other one, in my discussions with city manager, I believe Mr. Searles is already looking into an EV program or project that I think would be a great thing to move forward, as the mayor had mentioned, because I believe it's more of a private enterprise type of situation instead of us having to fund it, which I think that's probably the best way to go. And I agree with my council member that whatever we can do to bring in EV, but making it pay for itself versus us subsidizing it would be great. The only other one question, with the environmental, we today had talked about with the wellhead protection program, and part of that plan involves involving more of the environmental committee in helping to promote the idea of preserving and saving our aquifers and all of that. So look forward to probably that coming out, because part of the recommendations within that recommendation of that plan is to communicate more with you all having to be the face of helping to promote that within the community. So just something to think about.
Okay, great, yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Councilmember Rice, you have 5 minutes if you'd like it.
Thanks. First, to my council colleagues who are currently sitting on the Environmental Commission, we are voting on something tonight, a new festival. It's going through the rec department, so if we could work with Sunshine on making sure that the community standards are met as much as possible for our trash and recycling program. And I do really appreciate that program. As someone who used to sit on the board for Summerfest, I spent an entire night inside of a dumpster with Washtenaw County, trying to do this on our own many years ago. And so the program that you all introduced to the organization was brilliantly helpful, because we didn't know what we were doing. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, having the vendors been a godsend, right?
Yeah, having the vendors and then having the program set up with the variety of trash cans and the signage and things like that is just tremendously helpful.
Yeah.
Secondly, I sit on the Parks Commission, and one of my Parks Commission colleagues, Jill Estrada, I don't know if she's reached out to you yet, wants to work with the Environmental Commission this year on the Green Thumb Awards. And perhaps taking another environmental look at some sustainability and perhaps changing up our program just a little bit, maybe offer a different kind of award. So I'll make sure to connect you all so that as we get into our summer planting season, we can take a look at that as well. Some, maybe like a native garden award, something along those lines. We really want to start promoting those types of things throughout the city. She's going to take the lead on some pollinator garden opportunities. She's looking into some rain garden opportunities for us. So we'll make that connection. So that we can have some of those conversations. I like the cross.
Yeah, there's definitely crossover there.
Cross-pollination of committees.
Yeah, definitely.
So we'll keep in contact. But I really appreciate what you all do. I know it's tough to implement these types of things because it's a habit, right? And habits are really hard. So anything we can do from the dais, please continue to let us know, and we'll, this has always been high priority on my mind as well, so leaning on y'all as the experts and bringing it to council, happy to take a look at whatever you can bring to us.
Great.
Thanks.
Sure.
Thank you, Councilmember Rice. Councilmember Harmount, any additional questions or comments?
My only additional.
You have 5 minutes.
My only additional comment is I really appreciate what Councilperson Rice mentioned about the collaborative, mutually beneficial relationships when it comes to recognition. And I would also want to throw that in there. I'd like to look and maybe see if we could revitalize the business grant idea and maybe get some of the businesses that are new on board in the last couple of years to see what we could do, what would be interesting to them, as well as maybe for the restaurants coming at it for if we can get some economies of scale or come up with some sort of idea for them to all be more leaning in a sustainable packaging type of direction for their to-go materials.
Right. Maybe they were lacking ideas that we need to sort of feed to them. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Councilmember Lesh, you have 5 minutes if you'd like it.
Just to comment on that, the Arts and Culture Committee is actually working with the vendors that are going to be, the food trucks that will be out at Jazz Fest, so hopefully they can get some compliance with them.
Okay.
Kind of a, this is what we like to do in Saline, and, if you can do this, then perhaps other events would be willing to use you as a vendor. One thing I and just from my time on the Parks Commission, I was wondering if you, with your good social media output now, our two biggest parks in Saline, Curtis and Mill Pond, are probably the only two parks that have both recycling and waste containers. And obviously, I live next to Curtis Park, and obviously, nobody ever even considers a recycling. Everything is a waste bin there, and I'm sure the trucks probably just throw it in there. If there's some way you could push that out on your website to just let people know, yellow top, green top, please use these for recycling.
Okay, yeah, we can definitely add that to our list.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lesh. Mr. Seal, anything else you'd like to add?
No, sir, Your Honor.
Easy enough. Ms. Thomas, is there anything you'd like to add for the record before you are dismissed for the evening?
No, thank you for your time.
Excellent. Appreciate the presentation. We thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, we are going to proceed to the consent agenda. The following consent agenda will normally be adopted without discussion. However, at the request of any citizen or council member, any item may be removed from the consent agenda for discussion. Is there a motion?
Moved as submitted.
Moved by Seal to approve as submitted. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Harmont. I'll get you on the next one, Mr. Gearbaugh. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda as submitted signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. We move on to new business item 24-37, special event application for Saline Carnival. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the memo from Parks and Rec Director Lambert and to approve or not to approve the special event application for the Saline Carnival and to waive or not to waive the associated fees.
Move to acknowledge.
Receipt, second.
Okay, so it's moved by Dillon to simply acknowledge receipt and seconded by Gearbaugh. Director Lambert, would you care to come to the podium to give a brief presentation, and then we'll open it up for questions from my colleagues.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone. So we're excited to bring a new event to Saline. I would say this came out of our rec task force probably about a year ago or so to have a carnival. And so we're looking at the event happening the weekend of May 31st through June 2nd. And what we're requesting, because this is going to be at Teft Park. We're requesting that the south parking lot be closed down so that we can host all the activities. I'm so sorry, I have something in my throat here. This, interestingly enough, this is coming out of a carnival that's taking place in Milan, and they have a lot of extra equipment, and so they've asked us to host this so that we could have something, really unique for our community. The issue, I'm looking at my notes. The issue is that, we do have to shut down. Thank you. Thank you, I appreciate that. We have to shut down the south parking lot, but we still have our two northern parking lots. We don't know how many people are going to come. So that's what our challenge is. And so I've talked to Director Searles about this, and I've also talked to Chief Radzik, and we've identified that there's parking across the street at Crescendo and Windmill Court, and we're also looking at potential use of some vendors in the industrial park, some of the businesses. So I do have some phone calls out for them to see if we can do that. Let me think what else. Our cost for the city is going to be minimal. We're looking at the need to cover porta-johns, trash and recycling like we were just talking about, as well as just some staff time to have somebody like myself down at the event to monitor. The event itself is pretty self-contained. Skirbick Entertainment Group, they're well-known. They've been providing carnivals in Canton with their Liberty Fest. Really great reviews. Canton has used several different vendors in the past, and Skirbick has stood out amongst the others. They've also, as I mentioned, Milan, I believe Oxford as well, and several communities throughout Michigan. So they really have a very solid reputation. The parking lot being shut down is going to be a week-long shutdown because they need to bring their equipment in, so it's going to be right after Memorial Day. So starting that Tuesday for the setup, and then the carnival begins Friday night, runs Saturday afternoon through evening, and then Sunday afternoon as well. Again, we anticipate at peak is their anticipated numbers, maybe about 300 people on site at a peak time. On a less than peak time, maybe 100 to 200 people. Considering the 150 parking spots that we have, we do recognize that the rec center, we still have open hours, so we're going to have to accommodate for them. As well as, some of the use of the ball fields on the north side. We aren't going to be renting any of our south fields that weekend, and we're going to, make sure we notify all of our customers in advance so that they're well aware that we're doing this. It's not unusual for us to have large events. We just came off of a weekend with our American Girl sale. If anybody was near the rec center on Saturday, the parking lots were absolutely packed. We had an event and a sale where people were coming from out of state to visit and to sell items. If you don't know anything about American Girl dolls, I can tell you it has quite the following, okay? So, we are used to accommodating and notifying our members of times where we will have limited parking. The other thing we are asking council tonight to, again, allow us to shut down that south parking lot, as well as waive the inspection fee for the tents. So that's a city inspection that would need to take place.
Easy enough. Thank you for that overview, Director Lambert. Mr. Searles or City Manager O'Toole, anything you'd like to add before we open up for questions?
No.
No? Mr. Searles, DPW Director? No, you're good? Okay. Ms. Dillon, as the mover, would you like to start with any questions for Director Lambert?
Sure. So the big elephant in the room is parking.
Sure,
obviously.
yeah.
And I think one of my biggest concerns, it's sort of twofold. First, we are focused on our members, and now we're going to be like, hey, by the way, there's probably no parking for you, so stay home, kind of a thing. And so just kind of understanding, I don't know how that's going to mesh.
Yeah, when you look at the times that it's offered, for example, Saturday from 12 to 11, our busiest time is Saturday mornings, so there shouldn't be any impact with that. The afternoon, we don't have as many, programs such as swim lessons and things like that taking place. In the past, when we've had mom-to-mom sales, like I mentioned, the American Girl sale, or we have a special dance where we do really have a lot of people coming out. What we try to do is just notify all of our customers and our members just to give them a heads up that they may have to walk a little bit more. And the irony is they're here, many of them are here to work out. So a couple extra steps, especially in the summertime, is doable. Yeah.
So then, if you look at the footprint, I think on your map of what, the layout, what I'm trying to figure out is then, where are we putting the people, the workers? Where are their trailers and campers and such going?
So it's my understanding that they're going to be coming in from Milan, and that most of their they're going to be staying overnight in Milan, where the rest of their equipment is. So I think that they're actually going to be bussed in. That's my understanding.
So we're not setting up a camp zone?
No.
Okay.
No, because they're having more equipment down in Milan for their annual event that's taking place that weekend. Yeah.
And then how are we going to keep people contained in the parking lot so that we don't have people kind of going into the tennis courts and especially into the building?
So the building, you have to enter through the front door, and you either have to be a member, pay a day pass, or be part of an activity. So we have a very strict check-in process through our front desk. So we actually host like SummerSlam, SAYBNS. They have their annual SummerSlam event, which packs all of our parking lots. I mean, they're doing that throughout the community. So this is something that we are prepared for. We put signage up at our doors to let them know. I don't anticipate too many challenges with the tennis courts or any of our other spaces. It is an open flow type event where people will be walking through, and it's not going to be fenced off. It's not going to be gated in. They're selling wristbands and ride tickets, so you can come hang out and people watch if you want and not have to spend money, though you probably will want to buy some concessions, maybe play some games, ride the rides. Yeah.
So is there an admission fee?
No.
There's no admission
No.
fee. You just pay to ride the rides?
Yes.
By the expensive.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So it's not an enclosed venue.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do have concerns about even the idea that we're promoting parking in another municipality on their public streets. Granted, those streets can accommodate parking. They're not meant for that kind of parking. So if there's a way in which we can find other lots, then that would be, I think, a more ideal thing. If I lived in that neighborhood, I don't know that I would be happy about people parking there all day, every day, for those 3 days. Because people are going to come and they're going to stay for a while, and, I don't see that we're going to have adequate on-site parking. So I think that's got to be an issue for it.
I agree that there is going to be overflow. I hope that there's going to be overflow. I hope we have a lot of people attending this because the more people who attend, the more successful the event is going to be. So we are anticipating, people would be, parking across the street. There are designated crosswalks in that space. And as I mentioned, I am, reaching out to some of the businesses in the industrial park to see if there's any opportunity to, partner with them to utilize some of their parking. Yeah.
So the other piece is that you said that at the exact same time, Milan is having their carnival. And so we're taking sort of their leftover pieces
We
that
are,
don't fit there. Is there concern that we're sort of taking away from their event? I mean, I want to be cognizant of that because, there's always room for everybody, but at the same time, this is a very specific thing. It's a big fundraiser for any community.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure that we're being fair in what we're doing.
I think I spoke with Sonia, who's with Skirbeck Entertainment. She's one of the owners, and they have done this before, where they've had two smaller events that are close in proximity, and she didn't have any concerns about that. Certainly, I think the event in Milan is a lot bigger. They do fireworks, they do a lot of different things. I think people are going to want to go there. But the nice benefit is this is here in our backyard. Although I don't have confirmation, typically that weekend is also the Saline FC recreation soccer tournament that takes place over at the fields by the high school. I will certainly take advantage of that and try to market and get those kids and families to come over after they're done playing soccer. And I think that's a nice convenience for families in our area. Yeah.
Right. And then the last thing, and then I'll yield the floor to the others, is that right now, obviously it's a new event, so the numbers are a little, when you take away the expenses that we know we're going to have, we're not really guaranteed any income. So if it's a rain out, then we're going to be operating at a loss. So we hope for good weather. But even at that, right now you're basing it on that we're going to make about $5,000. So it's not a money-making event. And I just want to understand that I'm a little concerned about that. Because we just, at our last council meeting, disbanded the fireworks committee because the city made the decision that it did not want to put financial or staff resources towards an event at this time because we have so many other projects. So I'm trying to justify how we couldn't do that, but now we can do this, and it's a marginal, sum of money. So kind of understanding what that's going to look like.
Sure. I hope that this is the start of something bigger. So hopefully this will get the ball rolling, and if it's a success, then we can offer from year to year, and hopefully that it'll grow. We certainly don't want to do anything that costs the city any types of expenses. But again, we've had meetings with Skirbeck, they've done this before. They're pretty confident that they're going to get people here, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. The additional questions for Director Lambert, Mr. Gearbaugh?
Just a couple to check in on some of the logistics. Of course, Mayor Pro Tem Dillon has mentioned the impact on the neighbors. That's my bigger concern, because those subdivisions have HOAs, which probably we should be informing those HOAs besides just the township, whatever. The other question, so you're anticipating, when I'm backing into the numbers, approximately 2,000 attendees if you're charging $25 a...
Right, yes. I mean, that is the hope, that we sell about 2,000 wristbands, but there's going to be more than just that, because there are going to be people purchasing concessions. I know we get so much money per concessionaire. People are just coming in buying individual ride tickets, so on and so forth, yes.
And so all that's coordinated through them? There's not going to be anything where we're going to allow our vendors in the city to come?
That'll all be through them. Yeah, we're at least not this year. We're trying to, again, keep it manageable, see how this works, and then if it's something that's successful, if there's interest from the community, then we'll, make it bigger and better. Yeah.
Really, you're just serving as a contact and then maybe working with the DPW to set up
exactly.
and some of that, so very minimal.
Yes, yes.
My question, this was maybe for Mr. Harrington. I know we have to do a lot of electrical inspections and those things, and maybe for you also. Where is the electricity coming from? Are they going to have their own generators?
Yes.
Okay, so nothing's going to be going on to overload our building resources?
Nope, they're bringing their own generators. Yep. And that's on the map. They have that at I think it's on the southern part of the parking lot.
Yeah,
the far south area, yes.
And then, of course, just my question, no alcohol?
No alcohol.
Perfect. I think that's...
And lights off at 11.
I understand, yeah. That was one of the things, is how late those hours go.
Yeah.
So that the neighbors aren't concerned about that, because it being, but it's no different than the park, the fair, so.
Yeah, so we're running softball programs till about 11 o'clock at night. In the summertime, our tennis lights are on until 11 o'clock, so there's definitely activity. I would anticipate a little bit more noise pollution with something like this than a normal night, though some of those softball games can get vocal, to say the least. Yes.
Shutdown will be at 11, it's not, we run the last ride at 11 o'clock and then another 15, 20 minutes?
They should be shut down by 11, yeah.
With that, I don't have any other questions.
Very good. Mr. Seal, you had your hand up?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Just a comment that Mr. Gearbaugh already made about reaching out to the neighboring HOAs.
Yes.
If there are any that you're aware of, to at least give them the courtesy of previous notification.
Yes, the parking would be, on our west, in front of the rec center to the west of the park. And then we do have the housing on the east, side of the park. That's more the light pollution and maybe some noise pollution. But yeah.
Very good. Councilmember Rice.
So, first of all, I think this is fun. What are your thoughts on or what have you guys discussed as far as marketing opportunities for the Saline Rec Center, right? I feel like this is a great way to talk about, what's going on in the rec center. My first gut instinct was actually, would it be too much to also have an open house that weekend? Just a short couple hours where, you could bring families in and take a look at the amenities inside and.
Sure. That's a great idea.
We kind of discussed that. I just don't know if it's piling on too much.
Again, because of the parking, I don't want to do a full-fledged open house, but we have talked about, having information booth out there to promote, Saline Parks and Recreation, not just the rec center, but Saline Parks and Recreation as a whole. And certainly, as we have those discussions, we always invite people to come on in. Yes.
A couple of one-offs.
Yes.
Yeah. I think this is a great idea.
We'll be prepared to give tours. Yes.
Yeah. I look at this as a great marketing opportunity for the rec center. Get some information from people. What are they looking for? you know, what kinds of programs do they like, things like that. So, yeah, I think just taking care of a couple of those concerns to make sure that we're friendly to our neighbors. And then this has my support.
And Councilmember Rice, I think you hit the nail on the head there. You know, anytime we do events, sometimes people wonder why we do so many events. It's all about getting exposure and getting people out to the parks and having different opportunities for different people. So what satisfies some families, you know, may not satisfy others. So having a variety of events and offerings is really important to us. Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Any additional questions from the dais? Mr. Gearbaugh? We'll vote.
One, I know security is being provided for them within the venue, but are they also going to provide security around the whole rec center? Or is that going to be on our police?
No, that would be put on the city. We're not anticipating anything more than, you know, I mean, when we have a movie in the park and we have 500 people at Mill Pond Park, you know, the police department is aware. You know, we ask that they, you know, patrol comes through a couple times just to make a presence known. And then, you know, if there's any issues, obviously we would be contacting, you know, 911, but yeah.
That would probably be my only request, is that we do make sure that patrols
Yes.
are going through there.
Yes.
Basically on the hour half.
Yep, and that's common practice for us with our events, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Harmont, you had a question before we vote on the motion to acknowledge?
Yes, I have a question. I have a couple questions. One is, you mentioned the anticipated was 2,000 attendees. What is the break even for this to be a Sullivan event without going over?
That's a great question. Doing the math really quickly in my head, I would think probably about 600 to 800 wristbands. Yeah, I think that's about.
Because I was figuring 3 days, approximately 660
Yeah.
people a day, and you probably pay for a third of that. So.
Exactly, yeah.
In that location during this time of year, have you had that type of traffic for events, special event?
This is the first time we've offered something like this at Taft Park.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, to do something like that. A lot of our bigger, like, events that we offer at the rec center tend to be in the wintertime. You know, like the event we just came off of, those mom-to-mom sales we've done, big dances, Halloween events, things like that. But to do an outdoor event of this size, you know, I guess when we look at our movies in the park, we're down at Mill Pond, we're down at, you know, Henny Field doing events. Yeah. So typically on a weekend, most of our leagues, we're not canceling any of our programs because of this, so it doesn't impact like our softball leagues. You know, we might have had a couple rentals over the weekend, but that's insignificant compared to what this could be, yeah.
In the questions that came up about the parking,
Yeah.
I would assume the handicap parking would not be impacted, so that the handicap folks would not have to walk in.
No, I may want to just cone off a couple additional ones on the north side of our building, just to be safe, yeah.
Thanks for that.
Yeah.
And my final comment/question is, will this event be supporting the environmental sustainability waste guidelines of no styrofoam?
Yeah, we've had conversations about this, yes. And we'd like to be in contact with the Environmental Commission so we can maximize this, yes.
We'll hope to see you in this month's meeting.
Yes, that'd be great.
Okay. We're going to vote on the motion then. It's a simple motion moved by Dillon, seconded by Gearbaugh to acknowledge receipt of the memo. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. The motion carries unanimously. Is there a subsequent motion now to approve or not to approve, and to waive or not to waive?
Move to approve and to waive.
Moved by Rice to approve and to waive. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Seal. Is there any additional discussion? Mr. Gearbaugh.
I know we waive fees, but for me, we've subsidized the rec center to a significant amount. And since this is making money, I don't know why we aren't making them pay for the fees. It's one of those costs that's associated with this whole thing. So, and we're having to pay. Is the county going to do it, or are we going to do it?
For the tent inspections, the building official, who is a salaried employee, is capable of doing it. For the electrical, it's through the Washington County. But the fee is unknown at this time because it's dependent on the hours he spends at the site, not so much the overall number of items. It sounds like a relatively professional group. It's not that large of an area. I would guess it would be no more than 1 to 3 hours. So that was the figure I provided, Ms. Lambert.
Just for me, I think when we do these events where it's money-making, there should be no waiving of fees. But at this point, I suspect it's going to pass regardless, but going forward, it needs to pay for itself.
Director Lambert, first of all, thank you for
Yeah.
your presentation. It is not my style or approach to get too deep in the weeds on an initiative, an event
Sure.
like this. I tend to focus on policy and broader strategic
Sure.
initiatives. That said, much like my colleague, Ms. Rice, I do think this is a fun event and a new amenity worth offering to our residents. And we hire capable, quality people to review and administer these types of things. That would include DPW, yourself, the city manager, police, any other department that is applicable. I hope that this is successful and can become a recurring event on our social calendar, not only because it's fun and it builds on a sense of community, but also can generate some important revenue for the city of Saline at a time when we need it. I will say my only comment, and of course we cannot ultimately control where people choose to park. But it's been said by Mayor Pro Tem Dillon, by Mr. Gearbaugh, by Mr. CO, whatever we can do to develop partnerships with neighboring properties and move people to those parking lots as opposed to having them park in residential properties in Pittsfield Township would be ideal. I think there's a lot of opportunities. DPW, DAVCO, MMI, the old R&B corporate headquarters, even further north in Teff Park by the baseball diamonds at the city's border with Pittsfield Township. There's significant parking and easy access via sidewalk to the rec center. So I will be supporting the motion. The only other thing I would add is I think having a table out front and doing what we can to promote our rec center and the campus and the amenities that we offer would be very advantageous. So good work on this, and like I said, I'll be voting in the affirmative when I call for the vote. Are there any additional comments? Mayor Pro Tem Dillon.
Just very quickly, just logistics. So we are providing the porta-johns.
Yes, and a 20-yard dumpster.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how are we calculating that we only have $2,000 in fees if we're buying porta-johns that are going to have to sustain large numbers of people over the course of 4 days?
Yeah.
When it's costing us $200 per porta-john right now for in our parks?
So we already will have 2 porta-johns down there, just that we already have service at Tuft Park. So we will be having to add additional ones, yes.
Right. I mean, but I would think it would have to be significant number of them.
Yes, so we need to have 2 available for the staff for the entire week that the parking lot is shut down while they're doing the construction of the rides and putting everything together. So that's from that Tuesday through the end of the day, Monday after the event. And so we'll be utilizing the ones that we actually already have in place, and then we need to bring an additional 6 units in, for the patrons, the people who are attending the event, yeah.
We're going to have only 6 porta-johns for 600 people?
Yes.
That does not seem adequate at all.
Keep in mind the break even, it's 600 people over 4 days. So that's the break even point. The estimate is 2,000 people over 4 days, not 2,000 people a day.
Yeah, so Sonia Skirbeck anticipates that during a moderate time would be 100 to 200 people on site. During those busy hours, which would be more in the evenings, those later times would be upwards to about 300 people potentially on site.
Even at that, I don't see
Yeah.
that 6 is even remotely, adequate.
Isn't there a formula you use?
Yeah, isn't
That was a
there-
recommendation that they provided for us, yeah.
I mean-
When we had our meetings, that was the recommendation
I
that
think
they.
the issue is probably, the number of patrons is of course
Yeah.
important, but
Yes.
I guess the missing component would be, based on the amenities and rides and concessions that are going to be available, what is the average stay of a patron?
Yeah.
Obviously, the longer you stay, the more you're going to need to utilize services like a porta-john.
Sure.
If you're there for 45 minutes to an hour and a half, probably not as much.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, I don't have the answer to that, but that would be something for you and your staff
Yeah,
to evaluate in advance of determining the exact number of porta-johns.
Sure. I think for moving the park, like when we were at Summerfest, when we had, I'm thinking we probably had 300-400 people this past summer, we had maybe 2 units down there for an event that took place from 5 p.m. through, 11 p.m., so.
But we
Yeah.
also had we had the permanent bathrooms also.
Not at Hennyfield.
Oh, at Henning.
So that was at Hennyfield. Yeah, I'm trying to use that as more of an example to compare. Yeah.
I just want to kind of understand, I just don't want to, I guess I want to sort of cap out what we're approving
Sure.
as far as costs, because one thing that was not mentioned was any sponsors.
Sure.
And so I guess I just want to understand, I don't want to come back after the event and say, oh, yeah, well, we realized we needed some snow fencing, or we needed something this, and our $2,000 is now $5,000. So I guess I just want to really be firm in, this is what we're agreeing to at this point.
Yes.
Is, we're willing to waive $2,000, and that's it. So I guess understanding if that's going to kind of fit within the profile.
Care to make any comment on that?
So we're not waiving the fees associated with porta johns and the dumpster rental. That is being paid by the rec fund out of this. What we're talking about waiving the fees for is building inspection services, because we have someone in-house who can perform that during regular staff time. So just like all of our other special events, there's no direct cost to the city. It's an inferred cost because we've already paid it.
Correct, yes. Yeah, that would come out of the revenue that we make from the event.
All right. Any additional comments or discussion on the motion? Sunshine, thank you.
Okay.
We have a motion on the floor moved by Rice, seconded by CO to approve and to waive. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. We move on to new business item 24-38, North Harris Water Main Lining Construction Contract. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the memo from DPW Director Searles and to approve or not to approve the North Harris Street Water Main Lining quote from Paul in a not to exceed amount of $1,127,160.
Move to acknowledge receipt.
Moved by Gearboss simply to acknowledge receipt. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Seconded by Dillon. Director Searles, would you care to approach the podium?
Good evening, everyone. Would you like me to wait for questions or just give you a quick rundown?
Well, primarily for the community's benefit and those who may be watching at home or reading about this meeting subsequent tonight, if you want to give maybe a 2-minute overview of the project, the benefits and the genesis for the proposal, and then we'll open up for questions.
Excellent. So over the last 2 years, the water main underneath of Harris Street has started to break at a pretty accelerated frequency. I did look at the numbers. The first 15 years there was 1 break. The next 15 years there was 2 breaks. The last 9 years there were 2, 4, 8 breaks, 7 breaks total. The water main was put in 1985, and I did mistype that was cast iron. It is ductile iron. It was put in 1985. The water mains to the north and south of this segment of water main, for whatever reason, was replaced in 2015. I don't know the basis of the decision to leave it, but what we've found is this water main is actually deteriorating from the outside in. There's some hot soils. There's some reactivity. So the water main right now is on, I know it's only 39 years. I know it's only 39 years old. And I know the expected life expectancy of a normal water main in normal conditions is accepted at 80 years. It doesn't change the fact that this water main is failing. What it's going to do is destroy a $1.5 million, $2 million road prematurely. Because these breaks were recent and right outside the door, I've had an opportunity to see the water main, what it looks like, and see the asphalt profile. We have one exceptionally nice road out there that has a really thick asphalt cross-section, and we want to save it. I don't know the factors. I do not know the factors other than probably they decided it was too new to replace in 2015. And before then there was only 2 breaks anyway, so there wasn't really the data to show that this was going early. I believe some people argue, especially the people that make ductile iron pipe, this is a risk you take sometimes. I don't know what data would be, how much it would cost to do analysis on soils to find out what ones are good with ductile and what ones aren't. But this is one that it's not, and the life cycle of this water main has deteriorated fast. We're going to lose a road. We're going to waste money on the road if we don't take care of the road bed by taking care of the water main.
Very good. Thank you for that. Are there questions for our DPW Director? Mr. Gearbaugh.
looking at this, and this is similar to what we did on Michigan Avenue, correct?
Yeah, same process.
Same process. So when we look at, I'm just looking at the cost, how does this compare to what we did on Michigan Avenue in terms of number of feet and?
I was within like $100,000 using those numbers, those unit prices from Michigan Avenue. I was actually able to line it up. It's pretty in line with that same cost structure.
Okay, so when I'm looking on this, you know, the cost to just solve the issues with reconnecting the water, the fire hydrants and such is that a dollar figure? It's 20, here it is. $17,000 each. So what is that, does that involve?
It's a new fire hydrant valve and the pieces to put it in. Fire hydrant right now is almost $5,000.
So we're going to replace everything.
Yeah, we're not whatever reaction Mr. Gearbaugh is going on, there's no sense in leaving anything that can break, especially under Michigan Avenue.
That's a clarification for myself. Then the other thing is, and when it talks about, so every time we cut into the road, we're going to have patches on this road, right?
Well, we're actually going to line up some of the water main break patches, but yes, we're going to have patches. And then what I expect is a micro seal next year to make it a consistent watertight. And then eventually we'll be able to put it right back into the normal process of rehab.
So how many cuts do we anticipate in the road? I mean, the reason I'm asking this is like, how much do we have to do? I know the idea is we're saving the road, but when I started reading all this about having to fix, you know, manholes and hydrants and all of this, do we end up with a patchwork of a road now?
No, so you're going to have, there's going to be 12 access pits over the 2,200 feet. The plan details them out where you have connections, so you can only pull a liner so far. So we are going to have 12 lining pits, and I think 3 of them are in existing main break holes. So we'll have 9 new holes, but they're going to be dry. It's not going to be water washing out road bed. It's going to be, you know, compacted on our way up, and we're going to get the asphalt profile is going to be strong.
But these will all be in the road, unlike
Yes.
Michigan Avenue ones, which were in the lawn extension.
Correct.
For me, it's trying to understand, it's like if we're doing all these cuts, how much impact is it going to be on the road? Because every time you make those cuts, you end up having a potential issue. And as you
Yep.
say, you're micro-sealing it.
Yep.
I just want to make sure that we don't end up with potholes 5 years from now.
Right on. No, I get it. I get it. We'll be putting this road together, compacted, flowable fill limestone. It's going to be a very good cross-section of asphalt that didn't get wet and saturated like it does when the water main breaks.
And then just to answer the question that Mr. Grossman had presented, is why are the soil conditions that much different once you cross Michigan Avenue? Or
I don't know if those soils are any better or worse. What I do know is just past the Speedway, in 2015, the water main was replaced to just before the Speedway. So what we're going to do is take out the question of what was installed in 1985 with whatever materials they may have used or methods they may have used.
So it's a 12-inch line that goes all the way to Henry Street, and then
Yeah.
it goes all the way to Pleasant Ridge, but we don't anticipate the Pleasant Ridge?
It was already replaced in 2015. South of where, we're stopping at what was renewed in 2015 on both ends of this job.
Got it. Thank you.
Additional questions for Mr. Searles? Mayor Pro Tem Dillon?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Searles. So first, we'll start off with the company. And so is this product their own proprietary product, that they're the only people that can install it?
Okay, yeah, they're the only person in the region allowed to do the structural liner, the aqua pipe liner, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, because I was trying to figure out, when I was trying to figure out who they were, what came up actually was almost exactly a year ago, Novi did a similar project, and they actually were the prevailing bid for that. But there were 2 other companies that had bid the project, and I didn't know whether they were doing a similar product or something
I'm not 100% sure, but I can get you the answer. I believe they were bidding against directional drilling and pipe bursting. I believe they did 3 different methods in Novi. I can confirm that, though.
No, that's fine. I just wasn't sure. I was just trying to clarify that because one of the questions that happens to come to us a lot is you didn't bid it out.
Correct, yeah, I get it. But I
and
believe
so-
Novi's was 3 different methods.
Okay, that's perfect. So now, as part of this, will you have to replace sidewalks or driveways
No.
again? There's nothing, it's strictly within the roadway?
Yeah, well, there's a few feet, I have a few feet of curb in there, but like 20 feet. 20 feet of curb and gutter might be impacted.
Okay.
The laptop
No,
came
that's
on
okay.
and tripped out.
And then one of the other issues, because I remember this is from the Michigan Avenue, was that water is shut off, so you're going to be running separate temporary pipes to each house.
Correct.
How long is that going to last? Like how long is, what's the time frame for a project like this?
A month.
Okay. And what's the season, like, you were going to start it soon?
If you guys say yes, we're going to start it in 2 weeks.
Okay, yeah, well, I know we have a town hall on it next week, so I assume that it was getting ready to move. So that water that's going to households, it's usable water, there's no concerns with it, we're not going to have water shutoffs to homes?
It's our water. So it's going to be fed, so it's basically a water main on top of the ground.
Right.
That goes through the same chlorination processes and Bacti sampling, and then once it's tested and approved, then we're going to hook it up through the outside hose bibs of houses. We're going to be shutting them off at the street or knocking on doors and dropping meters.
Okay,
So that way there's no worry of any kind of cross-contamination.
okay. And then how would that work in a situation, say somebody had a dual meter system at their house, like their sprinkler people?
They'll be supplied water for both.
For both?
Yes.
They'll have a secondary line? going.
Yep, it's going to
Okay.
come in their house, and they're going to be able to, they're really not going to notice it.
Okay. I just want people to understand that we are not just giving them just some water out of the fire hydrant.
It's
Okay.
not bucket water.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
And we'll probably record that town hall so that people can see it and come back to
Appreciate
it.
that. Thank you.
Any additional questions for Director Searles? In reference to the town hall, which is scheduled for 5 PM on the 13th, will we be sending formal invitations, assuming that the motion passes this evening?
We have the letters written, waiting on tonight, and then they'll mail out tomorrow.
Okay, and also, I'm assuming Pierre Generalist will be drafting a press release that will be disseminated to our media contacts? Okay, very good.
And we've already had some preliminaries on this one.
Excellent, okay. I just want to make sure we're ready to go tomorrow, because there's a pretty fast turnaround of about a week's time. And I think it'd be very advantageous for residents and property owners directly impacted to attend. Okay, there's a motion on the floor moved by Gearboss, seconded by Dillon, simply to acknowledge receipt. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. Is there a motion now to approve or not to approve?
Move to approve?
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Dillon to approve, and seconded by Gearboss. Is there any additional discussion on the motion?
Just one real quick
Please.
question. So we were talking about, the deterioration of the pipe.
Yeah.
What happens as the pipe continues to deteriorate?
That's why I've always recommended that we use the structural liner. Once that pipe is gone, it could fall completely off. The water main resets to 80-year life cycle with plastic.
Perfect. Thank you.
There's no additional discussion or comments? Mr. Searles, thank you. Appreciate your work on this. It's been properly moved and seconded to approve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. Next up is the first reading. The subsequent motion to either approve or reject the ordinance change will be considered at our next meeting. Is that correct, Mr. Harrington, on the 18th?
That is correct.
Okay, so this is simply this will be a motion, well, let me read the header. It's 24-39, ordinance number 863, marijuana medical dispensary and retail curbside pickup. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the memo from Community Development Director Harrington and to acknowledge the first reading of ordinance number 863, marijuana medical dispensary and retail customer curbside pickup.
I'll move to acknowledge receipt because I have a question about the second half of it.
So you're just moving?
Moving to acknowledge receipt of the memo. Because do we actually have is this covering both medical marijuana
Yes, both proposed ordinances outlined show a change to the medical and the adult use section of our Chapter 22 business ordinance related to marijuana.
All right, I'll move to both. Okay, acknowledge for both.
Okay, moved by Gearba to acknowledge and to acknowledge. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by CO. I'll get you on the next one, Councilmember Rice. Mr. Harrington, do you want to give a brief overview? Again, I'm just going to entertain questions this evening. We can have a more substantive debate and discussion on the merits or ramifications of the proposal at our subsequent meeting. This also gives you a 2-week period to ask any additional or raise any additional questions or concerns between now and the formal vote.
Absolutely. So the city was advised to adopt clearer standards for curbside pickup at marijuana establishments. As a note, staff was unable to find other cities that regulate, meaning they don't prohibit this activity. Generally speaking, in larger business districts in the city, we allow what are called incidental drive-through uses, which through the interpretation of our planning consultant and myself would allow for curbside pickup at a non-marijuana related dispensary. The folks here before you are here because they have a condition on their site plan approval specifically that they cannot activate or use curbside pickup until the city adopted a formal standard for or against it. So what I submitted to you in Ordinance 863, there's one that you could adopt that strictly prohibits it in clear language, and there's one that would allow it with some regulation, assuming that that's what you would like. Again, other cities such as Ann Arbor allow it without any sort of limitation on spaces, without kind of any conversation as outlined in that ordinance, which currently would limit it to 5 spaces. They could go to the Planning Commission and ask to extend that. They would have to provide signage at said spaces that would not count towards their property's incidental signage, which is other directional signage, simply because that's something we're rather restrictive about. And likely curbside spaces would not face the street anyways, so the additional signage really isn't of benefit to them. It's also limited heavily in size. So again, it's just a first reading to get a clarification on this issue to formally determine as a city, are we going to allow it or not allow it? And then if we are, to what regulation we would like to establish with it.
Okay. Questions or comments for Mr. Harrington? Mr. Gearba?
Could you clarify the opinion from the attorney regarding that we do have the right to even stop the one that currently is happening?
Potentially, yes. Our city attorney thinks that under a Chapter 22 ordinance as opposed to a zoning code, it's not an issue of a nonconformity. It's an exercise of our police power, of our right to regulate the safety, public welfare, et cetera. However, whether or not we would actually receive a legal challenge is another question, and the cost to staff and the cost to the city to navigate said legal challenge, whether or not it actually results in the city losing the case, I think is another point of consideration. Again, considering that the offense to public welfare is not exactly clear to staff at this time.
How do we handle liquor, just out of curiosity, curbside liquor? Is there any regulation or anything to that?
Unless the state regulates it, which would be news to me, it would fall under general business. It would be allowed to be an incidental drive-through facility. Granted, I'm not actually familiar with any establishment in Saline, Bushes or otherwise that offers curbside pickup. I know that establishments in Pittsfield like Meijer and Target do, but again, that's outside of our jurisdiction. It's not something we've really had to broach yet. But again, there's no evidence traffic-wise that it causes any specific issue or causes parking issues to our knowledge.
And can you clarify for us again, when the transactions occur, is it cash or are they able to use non-cash in exchange?
I think it depends on the specific establishment and how they choose to conduct their business. I know that some of them can read debit cards and then provide you a refund in cash because they effectively operate as ATMs. Other ones take cash only. Out of curiosity, because I know there were some safety concerns about these potentially being source points, I looked it up and I couldn't find any examples of a curbside pickup robbery occurring within the state of Michigan. There was some stuff about delivery drivers, but that's kind of a whole other topic in and of itself that we can't actually prohibit. So.
And just to remind council, this is there was only one that we did not require deferral until this proposal came up in terms of site plans. We overlooked the one at High Society, or something happened with that one, correct? Planning had requested every single one of the other ones to have.
Right, and I can't speak to the Planning Commission's intent, whether or not they thought that site conditions existed that permitted it at one place or not. That wasn't a robust part of the conversation at that time, so.
But we did make it a requirement of each one.
Of the other 6 applicants, yes.
Thank you.
Additional questions, Ms. Rice?
And I'm going to ask our guests who are here, because I believe this is true, that the state of Michigan requires that you cannot use cash, correct?
We can.
You can take cash?
Yeah, we can take it.
Oh, I didn't think you could take cash. I
It's
apologize.
essentially the same transaction.
Nope, can you come to the,
Sean Mansour, again, on behalf of Rush Cannabis at 751 Michigan Avenue. It's essentially the same transaction you're going to have in-store with the cashier. You're just having it outside. So whether we offer debit card, which we will be soon, they could use the debit card. They could essentially go inside, use the ATM, go back in their car, and then pay cash. But it's essentially, like I said, stated previously, it's something the state does allow. It's something they don't regulate at all. As Mr. Harrington stated, you know, I've been in front of a number of municipalities. I haven't seen a municipality regulate this. We don't anticipate any extra traffic from this. In fact, I think, if anything, it'll speed up the process of people leaving the site quicker. And from that standpoint, I just don't think it's going to be any headache to the municipality. And if it was, we would consider that as well. Obviously, we want to be great partners and continue to be great partners with the municipality. So if you have any other questions.
Did I have it backward? Is it that you can't, at one point, you couldn't use a certain form of payment?
No.
Was it credit, is it credit card?
So the whole issue with credit cards is it's a little bit of a gray area because the credit card companies are not supposed to transact these types of transactions because it's being federally illegal and the credit cards being regulated by the federal government. That's a whole nother issue. It's not really a state issue.
Okay. My second question for you is, you do still have security on hand, correct?
Oh, yeah, and our protocol is to have security walk our salesperson, bud tender, whatever you want to call them at that time, to the vehicle. And so they're watching the whole transaction and back.
Okay, those are my two questions.
All right.
Okay, additional questions for either the petitioner or city staff? Mayor Pro Tem Dillon?
Thank you. You know what, I have a question for you.
Yeah,
I should have caught you
If you
before.
want to hang tight, Sean, that would be best.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. So, right now, you did mention that you currently have a pickup service.
Mhm.
What portion of your business is that pickup service?
Less than 20. It's not a significant portion of our business, less than 20%, I would say.
So, and then you do-
deliveries even less.
Okay. And so you anticipate that that would then translate to a curbside, so that those people that are already prepaying for a pickup service are just then not getting out of their car? Is that what you're implying?
If I had to anticipate, it'd be about 50% of those customers would now stay in their vehicle. A lot of customers who are picking up an order still like to come in the store. They still like to interact with our staff, or they like to see what's going on in the store, if there's anything new for them, or just to hear about a new special or whatever it is. It's really geared to the people who are, to themselves, know exactly what they want. They get the same thing every week. They place that order online. They don't really want to talk to anybody, with all due respect. They just want to come in and leave. They want to skip the conversation and just make it a quick transaction. Just be on there with her. So that's really what it's for.
Thank you very much. Mr. Harrington, I have a question for you. When Rush came about, there was not an issue with being within range of a school. They are now there is a school within range of them. So does that impact any adjustments to what's happening with their site?
This isn't a special land use. This isn't even necessarily an accessory use. This would be a Chapter 22 fix. So it has no bearing on the special land use or the site plan they were granted. I would ask both the existing dispensaries, should this be passed, to provide me a site plan designating the 5 spots if we pass the language that's currently in here, simply because that would be a formality for them to designate the 5 spots, and then it would be carried over for each subsequent license renewal that they have, unless they wanted to amend them. So no, we're not necessarily reopening their site plan. We're not modifying the special land use they've been granted. They're grandfathered nonconformity in, essentially, with the Catholic school being present there.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Any additional questions or comments on the motion? Ms. Rice?
Just a very quick comment that I would like to hear from our community. We've got another couple of weeks to look at this. We'll be voting on this in our next meeting. But I do want to stress that within the community, I think we need to do everything possible to continue to support businesses. I think I just read recently that we're set to receive somewhere around $120,000 in tax revenue from the last year of sales in our two marijuana businesses. I mean, we can't have it both ways. We have to support our businesses, we have to support our community, but I do still want to hear from people. I want to hear what your thoughts are. I will take those into consideration, but from my perspective, it's more important to support the businesses in our community.
Any additional comments or questions? Then we're going to proceed to vote on a motion to acknowledge, and to acknowledge that was moved by Gearboss, seconded by Seal. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. We'll reconsider the matter on March the 18th. We're going to transition now to the discussion portion of the agenda. I would ask my colleagues to exercise some brevity because we've already been at this for 2 hours and we do have a closed session on a rather substantive agenda item, and I suspect that the downtown signage, electronic message boards, and second-story projections may generate a little bit of discussion this evening. So again, I'll start with Mayor Pro Tem Dillon. Any reports or committee announcements?
Just a couple really quickly. The Cable Commission continues to meet monthly. One of the things that I had brought to the Cable Commission a while ago was it came out of necessity that people were entering our council chambers, the school boardroom, not realizing that they were actually being recorded. And so what we've created is a public notice that is now, if you see it, it is on our doors here, it is at school buildings, and it just shows people, it tells people, excuse me, that this meeting is being actively recorded and people are waiving any claims relating to the capture of their image, the retransmission of anything that is said within this room, and that they are giving their full authority to it. This is what the notice looks like. There's a slightly different version for the schools, same information. But it's just so that people do understand what's going on. And that these meetings are recorded. And that being said, if there are people that would like to be anonymous, there are other ways of communicating with us through emailing in public comments, getting in touch with us privately, things like that. Moving on, the Fire Board met recently, and we accepted the preliminary budget for next year. It is now being sent to each of the 4 municipalities to vote on, and then it will go back once presumably those bodies agree to it, then the Fire Board will agree to it, and it will go into practice. We are also, and I don't want to steal your thunder if you want to make mention of it, that the board is actively pursuing a new member-at-large member, and there is an application process. It does close, I believe, on the 15th of this month. If you have questions, please feel free to get in touch with myself, the mayor, or any of the supervisors from the townships that are part of the Fire Board. So we would like to get that taken care of soon, too. We are also, the Fire Board is also making slight modifications to its intergovernmental agreement, and that's just basically changing, slightly changing the structure of the members of the board, of who can sit on that board. So I think I will stop there unless Ms. Harmont wants me to report out on ZBA.
I would appreciate, I did hear that the ZBA we did not pass the.
Yes.
Yes.
So the Zoning Board of Appeals met last week to hear from an applicant. It was actually a second time that they had come. It was regarding the new build of a garage accessory dwelling structure. We don't call them garages anymore. It initially did not meet the height requirement, and then we changed some things, and it did, but it was still over the size. After thoughtful consideration, the ZBA did decline on that variance, but we also, excuse me, not we, I am not a member of that committee at this time. That board also did instruct a piece to go back to the Planning Commission that's going to revisit the percentage of structures that can be on a property and how that configuration is done.
Thank you for those announcements. Mr. Gearbaugh, any other reports or committee announcements?
Yeah, just a couple. Planning Commission approved the renovation of the old UAW Hall on Maple and Woodland. Dr. Bullards, both a husband and wife team, who are local residents, are seeing this as kind of like their dream facility. So hopefully that will be opening within the next year. Approximately, I think they said 35 staff with a facility that would hold about 35 patients. So It's a large facility, and we're looking forward to that. And they're going to be renovating the building on the outside and the inside. Today, I was made a part of a wellhead protection program update. We're actually going to go through our wellhead protection plan and reevaluate it. It was done in 2000, and it was done again in 2013, and there were a number of things in terms of potentially an ordinance, communications, but a number of aspects that are needing to be revised because either the fire department no longer handles some of the hazard materials, the things that moved over to the county, and then the other aspect of it is that, just forgot what I was going to say. That we will need to address issues that we thought were recommended back in 2013, but have not necessarily been done. So revamping those requirements such as monthly meetings and things that just no longer make sense from the perspective of a management approach. And now that Eagle's more involved and such, we'll be able to rely upon them and the county.
Thank you. Councilmember Rice, any commission committee reports or announcements?
Yeah, the DEI committee had a wonderful meeting at Washtenaw County Sheriff's Department, met with their DEI folks over there, and we're going to continue to build that relationship. They have some great resources available, and they've given us some advice on some resources that we're working to build. We're also working with the Saline Schools DEI group, and we've got some coordinated activities, community activities coming up starting in April throughout the spring, and then something later this summer as well. So we're really making some grounds on connecting with other entities throughout the county to strengthen some of our DEI initiatives. The Parks Commission is not to steal the mayor's thunder, but I will be joining the mayor to discuss some exciting things coming up in the parks at 10:30 in the morning on Friday at the Senior Center. So look forward to seeing folks there. And then I did just want to make a brief statement and a request from the city manager regarding, and from our community development director regarding our downtown businesses. My very dear friend, Miss Jen McPherson, is closing her store, as many know, and that's why I'm representing her with my sweatshirt today. Therefore, leaving only a couple of retail stores in our downtown. I urge my council colleagues and the mayor and the city manager and the community development director to really sit down with the public and start having some thoughtful conversations, really get to know our business owners, start listening to what the needs are and who we really want to be in Saline. And my request from the city manager and the community development director is to start having some conversations with the public about what y'all are working on. I know there's some stuff going around behind the scenes. It's not very public facing. I don't want this community to get discouraged, but I do want to make sure that we are listening, we're hearing what's going on, and we are actively pursuing some initiatives to build up our downtown, because we've really taken a hit over the last year or so, losing two very strong female-owned businesses. It's really made an impact on many of us who not only live downtown, but have worked really hard to try to support these community members. These community members worked their butts off to try to support the community in which they were growing their businesses. And so I think we owe them the favor of continuing to have these conversations in a public-facing setting, and instead of, I know there's work being done, but I think we need to start talking about this more openly than behind closed doors.
As I made mention of in my weekly communique, I have a prepared statement on that topic to read at the conclusion of the reports and announcements. And then if Mr. Harrington has anything he'd like to add, or City Manager O'Toole, I would welcome that.
That'd be great, yeah. I just would like to have some sort of public town hall type where we can invite people in to talk to us as well, so that it's not just us talking at them. That's all, thanks.
Councilmember Harmount.
I support the comments that Councilperson Rice mentioned, and I also appreciated your comments at the Chamber of Commerce luncheon that was earlier regarding the vision and the strategy for our downtown businesses, but not just the downtown businesses. I think that there is an opportunity or an area that should be addressed to incorporate and loop in all of the businesses within the area. You know, we have the Main Street, and we have, which is very localized, the downtown, and then we have the Chamber of Commerce, which is really more wide encompassing, but we really don't have an entity that loops in or organizes the businesses within our four corners to help come up with a strategy along with the property owners to support having a more diverse and vibrant base of businesses.
Thank you. Mr. Lesh, committee reports or announcements?
Arts and Culture continues to solicit donations for Jazz Fest and actually looking for suggestions on places to put art in Saline.
Very good. Mr. Seo, any reports or announcements?
Just a couple quick ones. The Environmental Commission met last week, and based on the annual report that was just given, I'll waive any further mention of that meeting. I did want to notify council and the public, though, that the cemetery is now, they've begun construction in the cemetery of the retaining wall along Michigan Avenue on the inside of the cemetery that was formerly a short timber wall. So that is going away, and they're probably about 65% complete with that retaining wall on the inside along Michigan Avenue. Looks good so far.
Very good. Thank you. I just have one prepared statement, and again, I'll try to be very brief because we've got some significant ground to cover for the remainder of tonight's meeting. For some time now, I've been concerned with the state of affairs in our downtown, specifically the number of struggling businesses and vacant storefronts in and around our four corners. A vibrant and successful downtown is inextricably linked to a strong and sustainable Saline. First, to all of our existing businesses, I want you to know how much our city appreciates your dedication and fortitude. Your contributions to our area are noticed and undoubtedly benefit our community in innumerable ways. Additionally, as I expressed around the holidays in late 2023, based upon our demographics and the amount of disposable income available within our area, if Salinians changed just 10% of their buying and purchasing habits and redirected those dollars to Saline-based businesses, you'd watch. This local economy would simply take off. Quite frankly, the best thing any of us can do if we value entrepreneurship and a strong local economy is to deliberately and consistently support and patronize our local businesses. Further, I'm very pleased to report Saline Main Street has taken the lead on organizing a Ready to Recruit Business Primer Subcommittee, commonly referred to as R2R Primer, which will be partially led and facilitated by representatives from MEDC, the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. R2R Primer services are designed to help local Main Street organizations put essential information and tools in place for the development of and effective implementation, of business retention and recruitment initiatives. The process involves training along with ongoing support based on best practices and examples for gathering and updating pertinent district information and market data, preparing collateral materials, and of course, inventorying and promoting business development resources. Though modeled, with strong recruitment training component, R2R services build upon and offer guidance for fine-tuning business retention and expansion efforts, as they are the foundation for any successful entrepreneurial development and business attraction activities. The city is also exploring options to conduct placemaking in the heart of our downtown. We have received $40,000 from the Redevelopment Ready Communities program to create a pragmatic design with cost estimates for downtown gathering space. The city has already engaged several downtown businesses and property owners, as well as members of our Main Street organization, to collaboratively innovate with the city on this study. Separately, our Community Recruitment and Retention Team, CRRT, comprised of representatives from the city, Main Street, Chamber, and schools, continues to meet and is in the process of organizing a downtown business and landlord summit for later this month or early April. This will be hosted and organized in addition to our normal large and small business luncheons, which include all area enterprises regardless of size or their geographic location. It would be very advantageous for local officials to engage directly with our downtown business owners to better understand both the challenges and opportunities faced by merchants and property owners alike. A formal press release and agenda for said event are forthcoming and will be disseminated in the coming weeks. It is also very fortuitous, the Community Recruitment and Retention Team, CRRT, will be meeting tomorrow afternoon. While I will not be present, I'll be in Lansing testifying on some proposed legislation. I have asked Mayor Pro Tem Dillon to attend in my place, ensuring council participation and support of this group and its initiatives, to provide support for this group because its initiatives are both timely and critically important. We will have more updates to share on the economic development front in the coming weeks. In the interim, if your business needs assistance, or if you're an existing or budding entrepreneur and would be interested in starting or relocating a business to the Saline community, I would strongly encourage you to reach out to our Community Development Director, Ben Harrington, who also doubles as our city's business ambassador. Mr. Harrington is very accessible, thoughtful, and eager to help. I will also post this information online, but for reference, his email is bharrington@cityofsaline.org, and his direct line is 734-429-8296, option 3. Thank you very much. Mr. Harrington, is there anything you'd like to add before we transition to downtown signage?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I think a service that we've been offering, especially given the history of some of our downtown buildings, is to have our building inspection team, including the gentleman from the county, at no cost to these business owners, to walk through a space, to evaluate, what ways it may be out of compliance with state code, and provide them a little bit of a heads up of potential costs that they might have. We've run into several issues around Saline, not in just our downtown, of landlords signing triple net leases with folks before they talk to the building department, only to find out that, wow, this bathroom is woefully out of ADA compliance. It's going to be involving tearing down a wall, redoing plumbing, and it becomes an expense, a tremendous expense, to be honest with you, with our local businesses that are just trying to start out. Additionally, we're also doing pre-application meetings with our engineering planning consultants, so if there are site developments that folks are interested in doing, again, and no charge to these folks unless they apply, we're providing these services just to walk them through the process, to give them ideas of what they might be needing to take into consideration for their site. But we're here to help. We're eager to help. We want to help. So please just give us a call or an email, and we're there.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Can we transition then to downtown signage?
Yes. So similarly, as the public commenter mentioned, Trinity Lutheran Church across the street here is interested in having an electronic message board. There was one issue with our sign code update last year, which it still states commercial districts. Looking back through our history of how we've enforced that, it has not included our two downtown districts, our D1, which is our downtown core, and our D2, which is our downtown edge. They have commercial and residential users, which is why either way it should likely just be delineated and listing the districts that we are allowing them in, whether that's the C1 through the I-4, if that includes the downtown or not. It's mainly a policy recommendation. It comes down to aesthetics more than anything else. I've talked to MDOT about the issue. They don't really care one way or the other. Obviously, no animation, flashing. We would keep the consistent standards that we have for electronic message boards in other places. The one person who was not able to make it tonight is Tyler Kinley, who is the owner of several of our downtown properties. He's on his honeymoon in Greece. Congratulations to him. And he wanted to know if he could do second-story projection signs. So our downtown sign code currently limits projection signs, which are signs that come off the wall to a maximum of 4 feet off the wall, are limited to first-floor establishments only. He has a client that's currently an alterations group, or alterations by Brittany. I can't remember her name. I apologize if I said it wrong, who was in their basement, who's now moving to the second floor and would like a little bit of additional signage to locate her business. And a projection sign is kind of within the historic nature of the downtown, and at least staff believes that it would be more than appropriate. And then obviously you heard from Jason from Drop Top Pizza, who's interested in potentially allowing additional signage in an alley that would not be usually particularly visible from a public street, we'll say, which is a similar carve-out that we've made in our sign code for monument signs on large campuses, that if it didn't face the public street directly, they could have an additional monument sign for the purpose of navigation in the back of their building.
And the sign in the back of Drop Top Pizza would be for pickup orders, correct?
It would be for his carry-out pickup aspect of his business. I think he's looking to create some foot traffic and activate that alley in a way that it has not historically been. I looked at it this afternoon. I don't see potentially any issue. I'll have to talk to the fire chief about the location of the fire escape in relation to it, but it's still several feet removed. Again, it's a rather minor issue. It's aesthetic. It's our preference for how we want to look how we want the downtown to look, and that ultimately kind of rests with you, which is why we're trying to get your feeler before we bring it to the Planning Commission, because you ultimately will be the party that votes on it.
Well, let me just say, I'm a little bit more dubious about the second-story projections. I guess I would be inclined to have a more focused discussion on the benefits to property owners and businesses and potential ramifications of electronic messages. I don't have any problem with an attractive sign in Leather Bucket Alley to promote takeaway business or carry out from Drop Top Pizza. So those are my initial thoughts. I know you and I chatted very briefly about it today. So I'm sort of I'm inclined to favor one. I'm open for discussion on a second and likely opposed to the third. That makes sense. I'll just go right down everyone's got a chance to speak here. Go ahead, Mr. Gearbaum, then we'll jump to Ms. Rice and Ms. Harmon, and then double back to my colleagues on the right.
Okay, just on that, we've had a massive discussion on electronic signs, not only from a code review, but also from the planning commission. And the biggest problem with that was you can't control what's put on that board. It would be fine if it was just type, but the issue we had was you can't control type nor the type of images that go on it. So you could pretty much put anything on there that could be considered an issue. So the concern with that was one of the reasons with the electronic message boards. I mean, the other part of it was that they are distracting from some perspectives, depending on how bright they are and all the other things. The only ones that we have in town are either from the schools, which are exempt from our codes, and one other one that got approved that probably shouldn't have got approved before the ordinance was created. Second-story projection, are you talking about signs that project out or actual projection of?
So a projecting sign is a sign here, just for a visual example, that goes like
Exactly.
this.
Oh,
So
excuse me, okay.
It's not projecting, it's projecting from the wall, it's not like video projection.
My faux pas then. I'll retract my previous statement.
Right, the examples we have downtown currently, I believe Cornerstone is putting one up, but they have not already. That's within the sign limits. McPherson's has a projecting sign, and then Smokehouse 52 has a non-conforming projecting sign. And from a personal aesthetic standpoint, which doesn't really matter, it's just my conjecture, I think the Smokehouse 52 one is sized appropriately to actually see it and then not need additional building signage, which I think is kind of the fault of the current existing code size limit on that projecting sign. Is it's so small, you inherently need another sign to kind of offset the size of it.
I'm fine with those as long as it doesn't violate anything with the state of Michigan, Michigan Avenue, because they own up right to the building, so putting a projection sign into their right-of-way was always an issue, and a couple of those signs that are up there, we granted them some variance, but I don't know if the state of Michigan would.
Right, there's some specific language within the existing projecting sign code, essentially, that says that MDOT has the right to say, no, they overrule us on that specific issue, and that it can't overhang more than 4 feet, and that it can't overhang a road, period. It can overhang a pedestrian area, but it cannot be over a road.
Yeah, and for me, it'd be making them not huge ones, but something within a reasonable 2, 3 feet. 4 feet really starts putting them out there. I know Maggiamo's is kind of like that. Other than that, yeah, for me, we have had the whole discussion about electronic signs to reopen that a can of worms again. I just don't think it's necessary.
Okay, Councilmember Rice, I'm not looking for any commitment on how you're going to vote, just sort of your visceral reaction to this proposal.
Love projection signs. I think they would look really pleasing aesthetically downtown on some of our historical buildings. I think I fully support that. Granted, size limitations are appropriate and things like that. As far as the digital signage goes, I understand my colleague, Mr. Gearbaugh's comments about, being able to put other imagery and whatnot up there. I mean, you can do that with physical signs too. You can graffiti, you can do all sorts of weird things. So I think, so long as they meet the standards of, not having things that are flashing and, meet those sorts of requirements, I think it's the digital age and being able to put out a message in a more timely manner than having to physically clunk in the letters is the way to go. So I'm in full support, again, of whatever our businesses are asking for, so long as it's obviously appropriate, to support businesses, to support community services. I think this is, I appreciate your thoughtfulness in attacking these types of things when these questions come up and thinking about them from all different angles. I really appreciate that instead of the blanket no. So I'm leaning on Mr. Harrington's recommendations for this.
Okay, very good. Councilmember Harmon, any initial reactions or thoughts?
Just my thoughts are to support the local businesses, but also keep the historic look of our downtown and support the vibrancy of our businesses.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Lesh?
I kind of echo Councilperson Rice. I'm kind of in favor of moving into the 22nd century, are we? Yeah. The digital signs are kind of the way of the future, and as long as they are not distracting and projection signs, I love. So.
Thank you. Mr. Seal?
The projecting signs, I'm entirely in favor of. The electronic signs, the only two objections I have are when they're so bright, the light is so bright that it's almost distracting or hurtful to the eye, especially at night. And the other thing is where they have a scrolling banner, where traffic driving by, it kind of seems to automatically slow down to view a scrolling banner. It needs to be, in my view, if you're going to flash different signs up there, it needs to be one sign that's continuous for a period of time, and then another sign, so that it doesn't create a distraction again for drivers.
And I just add that that's how the allotted existing ones are allowed. They cannot scroll, they can't flash. It's a single message. It has to simultaneously then change. I mean, there is a sudden blink, but it's unnoticeable essentially. So.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Dillon, some initial thoughts?
Thank you. Well, I'll be frank in saying when I read second story projections, I thought projections. Because we've had those before, and I was wondering if that was trying to come back again. As far as the overhang, I mean, I think that we just have to figure out what is the best means. I do think that visually, they are easier to see at a distance and sort of understand what's there. I think we can kind of work through that process right now. And as far as in the space that you're saying, we currently have them on the main floor of that building behind Max, like Mod Squad, and so
And see, that's where it gets a little interesting because Mr. Branham and the sign contractor, as we were walking out of Leather Bucket Alley, pointed out. So it's actually not projecting, which was news to me. It hangs down in a specific way. And the other point is that we allow one projecting sign per establishment. And I think the wordsmithing here would be one per side of building that faces a public street. If you have the oddity of having an alleyway like Mod Squad or like this one, that you could potentially have a secondary sign back there for the purposes of identifying as these businesses have frontage or entrances on both sides.
Okay.
So, but yes, that's the anomaly is that Mod Squad doesn't have one on the front towards Michigan Ave, but then they do have this overhang. But it's not technically a projecting sign. I don't even know what it would necessarily be classified as. So.
Okay. So, I mean, I would definitely welcome the conversation to kind of work through that and figure out how to do it. Electronic message boards, my concern with this is it turns into a whole lot of light pollution very quickly because it's one here, then the next business, and then the next, and then the next. And then before you know it, I mean, we go through this a lot. If you go through Fraser, they have a lot of signs and they are blinding at times. And I would want to be very cognizant of what we're allowing, because if you're going to give it to this business, then the next business and the next, and then before we know it, Michigan Avenue looks like a runway, and we're just going to end up with a lot of different messages that are going back and forth. And I think it is very distracting. That roadway already has issues with distractions. We start adding lights to it, it could be even more. So I'm not really sure at this time that I want to reopen that window. It's always something we can have a conversation about it, but understanding how we would control it at that point is my big thing. And because I just don't see, I would think that once you did it for one, everybody would want to do it. You know, the churches, the banks, the businesses, the restaurants, and everybody's going to want that. So I want to be very cognizant of that, of what we would be opening the door to.
Absolutely. So I can do two things then for the benefit of the Planning Commission, who will ultimately have to hear this first. So one is that I will confirm with our city attorney on electric message boards on whether or not we can limit it to text or if it's open to images. My understanding is that you can't just limit it to text from the last conversation, but I will confirm that. Because there are other design standards that we adopted in a city in Minnesota where it was just amber text only. So you could only use it essentially as a changeable copy board with just out the physical change, which I think would be maybe more amenable, but again, it would just be brought back to this body. And then I will work on relaxing our projecting sign standards to essentially make them a little bit more loose, but obviously within the bounds of the rest of the sign code.
Very good. And just for council's edification, and because we have a petitioner in the audience, do you expect that this or these issues would be discussed by the Planning Commission at the meeting for the 13th I saw today was canceled due to a lack of agenda items. Could this be something that the Planning Commission could at least discuss or maybe even act upon on the 27th?
The noticing timeline for that would be rather challenging, so it's likely going to be the first meeting in April, but we'll have something pretty robust then to present to the
Okay, very good. Mr. Gearbout, real quick before we transition.
Yeah, I just want to remind council and the other ones that the previous review of the electronic messages was generated by the Methodist Church, and they're wanting a similar type of sign.
Right, I would say that this one was just done because it's downtown and it's a little bit larger. The Speedway, for example, has a variance, and then there's another building between the Chat Tough facility and the Pennzoil or whatever it is that also has a non-conforming one that's kind of hidden on their wall there. I don't know if it was ever permitted or how that was allowed, but it does exist, so.
Very good, thank you. You have some direction and consensus. City Manager O'Toole, do you want to comment very briefly on changes to the background check policy that were precipitated by some language in the city charter?
Yes, just in reviewing the city charter, we identified that as part of making committee appointments or any appointments or elected positions within the city, we need to do a due diligence check on whether those individuals are in arrears on any payments to the city, or I believe the way the charter is phrased, any governmental entity. So we would just be adding that process. The plan would be to update the existing policy, our background check policy, to include like a financial check policy.
I think the language that's used in the charter is default, and that an individual cannot be in default if they're eligible for elected or appointed position in the city of Saline.
Correct.
Very good. Okay, well, if there's nothing further, we're going to transition to the second public comment period. Under the Open Meetings Act, any person may come forward at this time, make comment or question to City Council. This public comment period will be limited to 3 minutes per person. Anyone who would like to speak is requested but not required to state his or her name and address for the record.
Mr. Mayor, Council, my name is Cheng Ming Fan. 7 points I want to touch first, maybe start it from our scientists. The important things to understand what I try to propose the SALT initiative for many reasons, of course. We have to catch up the technology already developed, and it is free. Just check Global Wind Atlas. And also talk to 2 directors about this. Until you have that knowledge and the information, you cannot count. You cannot discuss anything about the SALT initiative. What it is that new technology is not only free, but it's more accurate for us to use the energy to do so many things. I have 7 points to make. I want to move on quickly and talk about the fire work. And the SALT initiative is open the door, not fire, water, light. How do you do that? We need height, we need energy to do that. Saline is the best place. Location, not anymore. Attention. 2,000 years ago, Confucius said that science and logo rule the world, not the word and law. Notice that. Mayor and I have discussion many years ago. We talk about Jeff Bezos. I hate the guy, but he said the right thing. Attention economy is the best problem. So I want to get back to the L, S-A-L-T, is LED module. Can be 3-dimensional. And you're right, Councilmember Dillon. The height, the distance. So how can we use local entrepreneur many years ago, since 1996, couldn't take off. But when the big, gigantic dot matrix LED imported from China occupied Wall Street. Why is that? So we have to change the game. Game changed. I want to get back another thing before I forgot. I hold 5 bags of the seed. Ladies here talk quite a lot about the environment, and the commissioner, and I apply for the environment, the mayor approve or not, I want to be the member of the environment. That's 5 bags of the seed. Saline District Library each year. A lot of work. You don't have to pay. But please, just pick up 5 at least, at the most. So that is the environment, social environment. We have to develop locally, not globally, not just for the sake of money sake, and then you have the business. You're not. You ruin the business. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheng-Ming. There are additional citizen comments. It doesn't appear there's anyone left in the audience. Clerk Royal, did we receive any written comments in which the individuals wanted their remarks read at this time? Easy enough. Then I would note for my council colleagues and for the members of the public our upcoming meetings, including a town hall that's going to be scheduled for next week, the 13th at 5:30 p.m. here in council chambers. At this time, the chair would entertain a motion to go into closed session pursuant to MCL 15-261-1H for city council to consider materials exempt from disclosure pursuant to MCL 15-24-1J.
So moved.
Moved by CO to convene into closed session. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Dillon. The clerk will please call the roll.
Councilmember Gearbox? Yes.
Councilmember Seal?
Yes.
Councilmember Rice? Yes. Councilmember Bush?
Yes.
Councilmember Harmon?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Dillon?
Yes.
Mayor Marsh?
Yes, we are convened into closed session at 9:40 p.m. Okay, the chair would be delighted to entertain a motion at this time to reconvene into regular session. So moved. Moved by Gearba to reconvene. Is there a second?
Second?
Seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Dillon. The clerk will please call the roll.
Councilmember Gearba? Yes. Councilmember Seal?
Yes.
Councilmember Rice?
Yes.
Councilmember Lesh?
Yes.
Councilmember Harmon?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Dillon?
Yes.
Yes, we are reconvened into regular session at 10:36 PM. Is there any additional business to come before Saline City Council this evening? If there is not, the chair would entertain a motion then to adjourn this regular meeting at 10:37 PM.
So moved.
Moved by Gearba, and I'll let Lesh be the second. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.